Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, the Nika Fanfics. Back with amazing fanfiction. This is the series of What If Deku Had Soul Perception Quirk. Now before starting, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. Something changes with his mother a few months after the start of his training with All Might. She's quieter than she used to be. Neither of them were loud people by any means, unlike Kaken and his mother, however, they used to talk frequently and now they don't. She barely initiates discussions anymore. It's not a cruel silence, but it worries him. Something about it is odd. Then there are more prominent changes that even their neighbors note when he stops to greet them. She's less jittery, her usual bouts of anxiety seemingly gone. His mother isn't suddenly more confident, but the usual worry and stress she seems to carry in her gestures and steps have vanished. Izuku often gets home to see her sit on the couch and do nothing. She just stares blankly at the wall or the switched-off TV screen. But the moment she notices that he's home, she starts to move again and goes on about her way. There are two signs, however, that concern him the most about the whole situation. One would be her body temperature. The first time she hugs him after whatever change happened, he notices one concerning detail. Her body heat or well, the lack of it. His mother's body is cold. Colder than a human possibly should be. Dread coils in his stomach. Izuku bites his lips and digs his nails into the palms of his hands to stop himself from shaking. Izuku? Everything is fine, he eventually replies, trying to keep his voice steady. He fails but she doesn't notice. That hurts him more than he expects it to. Everything is off. Her voice is dull. Her body is cold. Her behavior is off. And most importantly, the second sign is screaming at him. Midoriya Izuku, although believed to be quirkless by everyone else, has a quirk. A quirk that is invisible to everyone else but stands out to him in every single way and accompanies him in everything he does. As she turns her back to him, he looks at her and sees her fading soul. Has your mother always been so? Well, you know what I mean. Izuku glances at the ghost beside him. Former pro-hero Lariat stares back at him, his eyebrows furrowed. Izuku has heard of Lariat before. On underground hero forums, that man was crowned as a legend, followed by tales of his abilities and ventures. Those tales, although a bit buried in the history of time and clouded with occasional misinformation, survived up until the present to no one's surprise. That man was, after all, one of the very first underground heroes. Slowly, Izuku shakes his head, a frown building on his face. No, she's never been like this. This? Nana asks him, a gentle undertone of worry behind her confusion. Like this, like, he fumbles with his words, before he spits it out, misplaced. Wrong. He looks at Nana and Lariat, stares directly into their concerned gazes, and tries to ignore the pressure building up inside him, growing slowly. She feels all wrong, she feels like you too but not quite. Like us? Lariat asks, raising an eyebrow. He doesn't want to say it. Doesn't want to speak it out aloud, so he shakes his head and digs his nails into his palms. Like you, he mutters, refusing to elaborate. Izuku won't say it. He won't. Both ghosts still look confused but refrain from asking more and he's glad. Glad that they are so understanding, that they won't force him to say it. So, they bury those thoughts away for the time being, pretending that everything's fine for just a bit longer. His mother leaves the house at some point for work. He's not sure she usually works at that hour but maybe she's picked up more shifts, maybe she got a bit more responsibilities, maybe. Instead, he ponders what to make for dinner, and pushes everyone's concerns to the back of his mind. Something is wrong with Midoriya Izuku, he knows that. Izuku just isn't sure if he wants to know what exactly is wrong with her. If he could bear the repercussions of digging too much out. So, he doesn't mind. Even if she spends less and less time at home. Even if her body grows colder and colder. Even if he can't bear to look at her soul anymore, an act that used to comfort him so much. Izuku keeps pretending everything's fine. And no one questions it, so, it's fine, right? It's the first day of school. Izuku should be focusing but nothing has been happening like it should in the past few months and he is exhausted. He sees fluffy, white hair and blue eyes that seem calm. They remind him of a vast, clear sky that pierces through his mind, through his thoughts. And blinks, before bumping his shoulder into Izuku's. He hums when he makes contact. He's not alive, Izuku, the ghost mutters, glancing curiously at the boy. Said boy ghost, his mind supply startles, eyes widening as he catches Izuku's gaze. Then he moves closer, hesitant hope flickering in his eyes. You can see me, can't you? There's no point in pretending he can't. He's been staring directly at the ghost far too long for that. Instead, he tilts his head once and watches as those blue eyes widen with an emotion he cannot comprehend fully. The same emotion that the ghosts of One for All sometimes wear when he talks to them. He understands that there's no possible way for him to fully comprehend how they feel, to grasp just how devastating an unseen existence must have been. He's come close due to the bullying he has experienced, but never too close. Even his bullies and tormentors didn't think and act like he was dead. They just wished that he was. The blue eyes fill with a mix of awe and something akin to relief as the ghost draws even closer to him. It's real. Izuku hums, as N answers the boy for him. Quirks can do incredible things, huh? The boy nods, a grin forming on his face. Yeah, they can, he replies before glancing at Izuku. At that moment, his eyes seem to shine so brightly, that Izuku can't help but feel like he's staring directly at the sky. My name is Shirakumo Oboro. It's nice to meet you. A vast, clear sky flashes in his mind. The corners of his mouth lift at the spark of reassurance he feels from that image. He has a feeling that this will become something quite incredible on its own. Izuku steps closer to Oboro and smiles at the ghost. I'm Midoriya Izuku. It's nice to meet you too. Izuku was always a quiet child. Even his boundless muttering was akin to the whispers of a ghost, forgotten amongst the living. People didn't pay any attention to it except to pick on it. Other than that, it remained unimportant and thus vanished amongst the sounds of everything else. He walked quietly. He talked quietly. He breathed quietly. He lived quietly. You have to speak up more, All Might tells him, followed by boisterous laughter, otherwise people won't be able to tell that you're there. Izuku doesn't tell his mentor that that's the point of his reticence. That he couldn't afford the attention, couldn't keep paying the price, whenever his bullies noticed him, when the teacher's eyes lingered on him. So, he learned to fade into the background, to be as quiet as the ghosts were to the living people non-existent. All Might tells him to display his presence to the whole world. Izuku doesn't have the heart, the courage, to tell him that probably won't happen. Not when Izuku keeps hearing the screeching murmurs and wails of people long gone. Not when he constantly hears tales that might as well be nightmares. Display your presence to the world and become loud, his mentor, his idol, tells him. His idol, who was a sign of hope for him for a long, long time. A way to keep his dream. He's tempted, really, by the light and the warmth, but he knows better. Wherever Izuku goes, the dreadful cold follows. He is never on his own and the wailing never leaves him alone. Instead, it tries to draw him closer and closer to itself. Become one of us, it whispers. You belong with us. He'll never be able to shine in the daylight. Izuku keeps on being quiet, but in the end, All Might doesn't seem to mind either way. What a relief, a voice inside his head whispers, what a relief. When tendrils of black incapacitate the zero-pointer, Aizawa Shouta is left stunned. One tendril pierces through one of the pieces of metal, which holds the robot together. Then it tears differently colored wires apart and leaves the underground hero more than bewildered. With a glance around the room, he confirms that he isn't the only one to be baffled. His colleagues all look quite surprised, gaping at the turn of events. All Might, especially, looks quite out of it, blood trailing down his mouth. This is some sort of Lovecraftian horror right there, Namuri eventually voices. And well, hardly anyone can be bothered to disagree. That's one hell of a quirk. Quirk registry? He glances at his boss, raising an eyebrow. Nedzu reacts immediately, shuffling out the application and taking a quick glance at it. His eyes glint with something akin to joy, and Shouta knows immediately that whatever they'll see will leave them all in disarray. Oh my. Nedzu chuckles, causing concern for everyone else in the room. This is quite interesting, don't you agree? Then he holds out the application for everyone else to see. Shouta glances over the applicant's information before he freezes upon seeing the quirk registry. Hey, that's, Vlad trails off. You gotta be kidding me, Snipe mutters, glancing at their boss. Nedzu's smile seems to deepen. Of course not. Shouta can't take his eyes off the application. Off the quirk column. N.A. A quirk awakening, 13 gasps out. Hey, maybe he's a false negative? Lunch rush offers. Snipe snorts. With a quirk like that? No way in he. Let's just face it, Namuri interrupts him. The entrance exam gave that boy just some serious trauma. Everyone shuts up at that, an awkward silence lingering in the room. Shouta doesn't care. A quirkless kid just tried to take the exam. And then awakened a full eldritch-like quirk. You know, he drawls as he gazes at Nedzu, his parents probably could sue us for this. Nedzu answers him with a cheerful voice. That they could. Tashinari is suddenly very grateful that young Midoriya convinced him to wait with registering the quirk. He was worried that it wouldn't go well and would seem too suspicious if they registered it later. However, a quirk awakening does seem like a good explanation for the sudden quirk. The only concern he has now is that he, well, doesn't actually recognize that quirk. It certainly doesn't seem to be one for all, but he has no other explanation for it. Except young Midoriya did go through an actual quirk awakening. A wave of concern hits him. He should check in with his successor after this whole mess. Lariat whistles. Now talk about making a scene. Izuku gulps. I'm going to be in trouble, aren't I? The former hero waves him off. Don't worry your head off. You'll get better at using it. It could be worse, Nana reassures him. You could have broken all your bones or something like that. Izuku frowns at that. Wait, really? Don't worry, I'm just joking, Nana tells him, grinning slightly. Then she pauses, blinking once. Yeah, it's just a joke. Toshi wouldn't be that irresponsible, probably. He nods slowly, unsure how to reply. He glances at Recovery Girl. She's healing the brown-haired girl he saved before sighing. Whispers of other students' conversations surround him and Izuku can't help but wonder about something. Izuku? I wonder if I can find any ghosts here, he replies to Nana. Seconds pass before his curiosity wins over. I'm going to take a look around, Izuku tells her, glancing around the place as he walks a bit around. He doesn't come far before a voice calls out. Hey there, listener. Looking around for anything interesting? I'm just trying to see if I find anyone dead here. He halts in his movements. Then turns to look at the owner of the voice. Present Mick's horrified expression stares right back at him. Oh. He probably shouldn't have said that aloud. Is the conversation savable? He questioningly glances at Lariat and Nana. Both shake their heads at him. Oh, you poor listener, Present Mike mutters, that quirk awakening must really have traumatized you. Ah, a convenient excuse. How kind of whatever deity usually f's with him. Why yeah, Izuku replies. It was something else. Come on, kiddo. Let's go drink some hot chocolate as we call your mother to pick you up. We'll be able to update your documents too. Well, at least he can cross the paperwork off his list. On his first day of high school, Izuku has to stop by the teacher's office before the start of the classes. It's for a check-in to assess how he's faring with his newly acquired quirk and to hash out some details about his education. He's going to be taking extra classes and dealing with quirk counseling for the foreseeable future. Oboro leads him through the floors to the right door, chatting happily away as he does so. Izuku doesn't mind. He prefers the noise over silence, and Oboro has a nice voice, cheerful, airy and full of warmth. As sappy as that might seem, it provides him some sort of assurance. Plus, the ghost obviously needs this. Being unseen to the living population translates to a scarce amount of interactions. Sure, ghosts can interact with other ghosts. It just doesn't work out as easily as it sounds. Because not all ghosts stay sane enough to hold conversations. And the ones that do? They all have their own set of issues that might interfere with the chance of proper communication more often than not. Izuku would know. When he realized rather quickly that he wouldn't find any friends within the living, he tried to find them within the dead. That usually resulted in mixed results, all varying from finding a few ghosts he gets along with to ghosts that tried to actively murder him. Multiple times. Oboro must live a lonely existence, and Izuku is more than aware how much that just hurts. It's painful, terrible and utterly dull. Nothing happens when you cannot connect with others. Humans are social creatures by default, and ghosts are nothing more than dead humans. Therefore, Izuku will do his best to listen to the ghost and respond, whenever he can. And well, Izuku could use a friend. A dead one is better than none, after all. And that kid seriously got into a lot of trouble for the spilled banana milk. Oh, look. We arrived at the teacher's lounge. It's that gray door over there. Izuku blinks, tearing his attention away from the ghost to gaze at said door, before nodding to himself. Thank you, he mutters to the ghost before walking up to the door and knocking on it. There's no hesitation to the act for once. Everyone reassured him that he wouldn't be in trouble, so he's going to believe them. His stomach squirms in discomfort. During his time at Aldra, the teacher's office only meant trouble. Never anything else. But this time it will mean something else. He'll latch on that for as long as he has to, as long as he can. So, Izuku pushes the discomfort down and faces straight ahead. He won't run away. He refuses to run away. The door opens and he comes face to face with Vlad King. Oh, Midoriya, the man greets him upon seeing him. It's nice to see you doing so much better. That's a bit presumptuous to assume. For all Vlad King knows, Izuku could be going through his weekly scheduled mental breakdown at the moment. He's right, Present Mike cuts in with a stare at his coworker. Even if the kid isn't doing well, it's still nice to see him. Oh no. He mumbled that out aloud. The voice hero turns to him with a concerned gaze. You schedule your breakdowns? Well, I can't have them interfere with my plans now, can I? Izuku responds, trying his best to suppress his anxiety. Which is an unrealistic action. His anxiety will forever rule over him. When will he learn that? Mood, a teacher clothed in black comments as he walks up to Izuku holding a folder. Izuku wonders which hero he is, considering UA's staff is exclusively made out of heroes. Although that's rather concerning, kid. The hero gestures him to follow, so Izuku does. He can't take his gaze off the white scarf the man wears. It's oddly familiar. They walk into a room and upon glancing around, he concludes that this must be Hiro's personal office. The teachers having their own offices just speaks of the school's financial situation. Upon permission, Izuku sits down at the chair in front of the teacher's desk and plays with the straps of his yellow backpack. Oboro settles down on the desk with a big grin on his face as he waves at Izuku. Then the ghost halts in his movements. "Are you okay with me being here?" he asks, eyebrows furrowed in concern. "This is rather personal, after all." Izuku smiles at the ghost's consideration. How nice. Usually, the ghosts don't really give a f about his comfort and listen in any way. Like right now. Lariat chuckles as he waves the younger ghost off. "Don't worry, this kid here owns no ounce of privacy anyway." Oboro blinks in bewilderment at the older ghost. "Who are you anyway? Wouldn't you like to know?" Lariat asks with a small smirk. Oboro gazes at him in question, but well, Izuku has no proper answer for the other, so he just subtly shrugs his shoulders. "It be like that," he mouths at the ghost when the teacher turns his back to him for a moment. Oboro doesn't look any more reassured, but the teacher shows us that moment to sit down. It's then, when he gets a closer look at the man, that Izuku realizes which hero sits before him. He immediately pushes his admiration down. He can fanboy later. Eraserhead addresses Izuku. "First off, the staff of UA apologizes to you for the absolute mess that was the entrance exam." "Well, that's a strong start." The teacher sighs, eyeing the coffee machine at the back of the room before shaking his head softly. "I'm supposed to tell you as reassurance that the exam usually isn't in any way dangerous or traumatic, but we both know that's utter bullshit." "Oh good." Izuku didn't have to pretend that the exam was the best thing to ever happen to him. Eraserhead throws a sheet of paper at the desk, combing a hand through his hair as he mutters, "How the F does the school board believe that telling the victim nothing's wrong with the exam is the smart thing to do? What a bunch of old shitheads." Lariat breaks out in laughter at that. "I like him. He's fun." "He sounds as done as always," Oboro comments with a bright grin. Izuku glances at the paper before looking up at the teacher. "Listen kid, the whole staff does genuinely feel sorry for what happened to you because it wasn't supposed to happen. An entrance exam should never traumatize a kid, no matter if this is a school training future heroes or not. You are still a child and therefore shouldn't have had gone through that." Eraserhead genuinely sounds remorseful and Izuku isn't sure how to feel about that. He didn't expect the school to care that much. "Truthfully, I always thought the entrance exam to be stupidly biased. A lot of people with the capabilities to be heroes don't pass through it and end up in another course or try at another school. They have to rely on other factors to get into the hero course, and until they get in they just waste time in a course they don't even take seriously." The hero sounds so frustrated that it leaves Izuku stunned. He understands him though. Robots? How is someone with a non-offensive quirk supposed to take down robots without proper training? In fact, erasure itself is a quirk that doesn't work on robots. Izuku knows the underground hero had to use the sports festival to transfer into the hero course. Had he never gotten All Might's quirk, that would have been the route Izuku would have tried to use. We also considered how ridiculous the whole exam was, but I admit I never put too much thought into how dangerous the whole thing was, Eraserhead continues, gazing at the back of the room for a moment. "Our boss usually tends to plan ahead for everything, so we never considered the potential dangers of the exam because, well, there shouldn't be any dangers with Principal Nedzu around." The more Izuku listens, the more baffled he feels. This is not how he expected the talk to go. He thought they'd just shove the whole thing under the rug and pretend nothing happened. And Izuku would have gone along because what else could he have done? Then your quirk awakening happened and we all were proven wrong rather quickly. Izuku's unable to gaze away from the hero. Sure, most of us wanted the exam changed because it's biased, but now it needs to be changed. We cannot, in good conscience, keep the exam like this. Eraserhead glances down at the sheet of paper and frowns. The school board doesn't quite realize it yet because it consists of a bunch of idiots. Well, that's brutally honest. However, Nedzu is going to have a meeting with them soon to talk about the entrance exam. There's been many such meetings over the years, always about changes to the exam. These changes have all been turned down every single time. A small smirk forms on the face of the hero. This time around though, they won't be able to do that. Because the state's educational department needs to get involved this time around, and it's unlikely that they will choose the school board side in this argument. The educational department? Dark eyes settle on him. The teacher's gaze is filled with something steady yet comforting. The school board still hasn't quite realized the extent of just how abysmal the whole situation is for UA. Then he leans forward. Abysmal? Midoriya, you went through a forced quirk manifestation, he addresses Izuku. That basically translates to torture. Oh god. Holy shit. Izuku's eyes widen as he finally begins to understand just how much impact his stupid stunt at the exam has. The school board already lost the argument the moment you awakened that quirk. Then Eraserhead leans back in his seat, a grin on his face. Congratulations, kid, he tells him. You just managed to do the one thing that Principal Nedzu has failed to achieve for years, to change the school's biased exams. Then he lifts his arm in a half-hearted cheer. No more robots. Hell yeah, Oboro cheers as Izuku proceeds to question his life. No more stupid robots. He shakes his head. And? Principal and Nedzu isn't mad at me? Oh, or the school board? Eraserhead raises an eyebrow. Don't worry, kid. Nedzu is grateful to you. After all, you just gave him the upper hand against the school board. That fills his little rat heart with nothing but the utmost mix of joy and schadenfreude. Then he leans forward with a grin, supporting his elbows on the desk as he places his chin on his hands. And the school board? They can't do shit to you. If anything, they are probably going to tell us to kiss your butt from now on to avoid any possible lawsuits. Well, Izuku isn't sure how to feel about that, but he's feeling something. Alright, Eraserhead mutters, stretching his arms. He glances at the back of the room once more before turning back to Izuku. Time to talk about your extra courses. And well, Izuku can't stop himself from speaking up. You Eraserhead? I can wait if you need to make a cup of coffee for yourself. The underground hero's eyes widen slightly. You know of my hero identity? Izuku doesn't want to assume anything, but the hero sounds impressed. He nods as an answer to the question. I found out about you through some underground hero forums buried deep down in the web. And how were you able to tell who I was? Well, for one, there's your sea capture weapon. I thought it was just a scarf, but upon seeing it closer, I realized the material was too refined for it to be a scarf. And, a closer look at your face made me aware of the dry eye, and considering your quirk is erasure, it made sense. The combination of these two things was too specific. Eraserhead nods as he stands up to head towards the coffee machine. For a moment, Izuku is worried that he effed up somehow, but then the hero speaks up once more. Observation skills, the man begins as he switches on the machine. Analytical skills, with a logical conclusion. The hero lifts the mug he's holding as he stares at Izuku. Situational awareness, you knew what I wanted by observing me and being aware of the placement of things inside this room. Minutes pass with silence from Eraserhead as he fills his mug with coffee. Oboro hums some sort of melody, an amused smile on his face as he looks at Izuku. Eraserhead places the mug down on his desk and sits down to face Izuku once more. And that's why the entrance exam is utter shit, no matter if it's dangerous or not, he mutters, sounding a tad bit annoyed. All that potential you possess would have gone to waste simply because you would have lacked a quirk to take down some stupid robots. Izuku blinks. The Eraserhead just basically implied that Izuku would have the potential to be a hero, no matter if he had a quirk or not. Man, he really is the coolest hero. Now, Eraserhead mutters after taking a sip of his coffee, looking already a lot more content, let's talk about your education. First off, I'm as homeroom teacher, Aizawa Shouta. Please refrain from using my codename when I'm off duty. Alright, Aizawa-sensei. Due to the unfortunate events at the entrance exam resulting in a forced quirk manifestation, UA will take responsibility and provide you with the needed tools, so that you can get used to your quirk, learn how to control it, as well as provide you with professional help to process that traumatic event. Process? Oh no, they are going to send him to therapy. At that, Aizawa raises an eyebrow at him. Considering you schedule your mental breakdowns, that is long overdue. Welp. Seems like he can't get out of it. As promised, we have done the paperwork for your quirk manifestation, including the registry. As you left us to think of the name, we have given the task to Midnight, considering she's good. Aizawa trails off as he glances down at the papers in front of him. There is an awkward silence in the room as he processes whatever he's reading. Lariat and Oboro exchange a curious glance before moving to read the paper over the man's shoulders. Lariat immediately breaks down in laughter as Oboro whistles. Jesus, how drunk was Namuri? Aizawa mutters under his breath. Okay, kid, we might have to change your quirk's name. Then he hands Izuku the document with his quirk information. Izuku immediately looks at the quirk's name written down. The Lovecraft Experience. Izuku blinks, unsure if he's reading correctly before he glances down at the quirk description. The user summons Cthulhu and causes heart attacks. Well, that's not too far off. In fact, that's exactly how it felt, except Izuku was the one who almost got a heart attack. If it's any consolation, we still haven't sent the forms in as we wanted to make sure everything would be fine with you. So, this is salvageable. Izuku nods. I'd be grateful if we could change the description. Aizawa raises an eyebrow. And the name? Izuku shrugs. To be honest, I'm fine with it. It is pretty fitting. My life does feel like a cosmic horror show more often than now. Also, it doesn't reveal what exactly my quirk does, so that's a surprise factor for anyone who might find out the name. Aizawa nods. Good on the last point. The first point, though, is a rather concerning statement and another reason why you should attend therapy. He's burying his own grave there, huh? Right, we'll change the description then, Aizawa mutters as he puts the document to the side. The next thing I'd like to discuss is your mother. Oh right, that. After we couldn't reach her to pick you up and had to drop you off at home, Aizawa begins, we managed to finally reach her by telephone a few days later. We explained the situation to her. Aizawa hands him a few documents. Please give those to your mother for her signature and return them by the end of this week. All right, Izuku replies, taking the documents and putting them into his backpack. These are simply to inform her of the situation, to get her agreement that she's still willing to let you attend the school and some stuff for the Quirk registration and therapy sessions. After that, they go through his schedule and the Quirk counseling placements. These will be largely done by Aizawa himself, as the man owns a license for such cases. Though, he did mention that Present Mike would aid some of these lessons, as the man would have more experience to deal with, whatever the hell Izuku's quirk is. They finish just in time for them to make their way to the classroom before the first bell. As they walk there, Oboro glances at him. Say, the ghost speaks up, how do you have a ghost seeing quirk and whatever Cthulhu is supposed to be? Izuku freezes. How does he even begin to explain that? When he steps into the classroom, almost everyone else is already there. His gaze wanders over his new classmates. The gravity girl from the exam is there as well as the boy with the glasses until they land on red eyes, filled with a familiar fury. Bakugo Katsuki is glaring aggressively at him. Oboro, who's been following his movements, frowns upon seeing Katsuki. Is that kid alright? He's looking a bit stressed. Lariat groans upon noticing Katsuki's presence in the classroom. Of course, they had to put you two in the same class. Izuku shrugs. It's not like the UA staff could have known. There's no way. Katsuki's records from Aldra were anything else but clean and filled with countless praises and golden marks. The teacher's comments were probably all gushing about how much of an angel Katsuki is and how he bakes cookies for the children in his free time or something like that. Ridiculous. The UA staff will take one look at his shining personality and realize it's akin to that of a garbage can. That bad? Oboro asks, his frown seemingly more prominent. We all wanted to punch the kid in the face at least once, Lariat replies. Before Oboro can inquire about that and what the older ghost meant with we, Katsuki finally decides to address Izuku. Deku, the blonde boy, snarls, so much anger in his voice that Izuku can't surpass a flinch. The F are you doing here? The boy moves to stand up, creating an explosion with his hands, and Izuku reflexively takes a step back, anxiety coursing through him. Is Katsuki really going to beat him up right in front of their new classmates? However, before Katsuki can do anything, Aizawa steps into the classroom and stares at him with cold eyes. Bakugo, he calls out, sounding a lot more exhausted than before during their meeting, use your quirk once more without permission and you'll be getting detention. Katsuki freezes and his mouth opens in disbelief. Izuku has no doubt that he must be wearing a similar expression on his face. Their other classmates keep quiet, just observing the whole situation with wide eyes and open mouths. Serves him right, Oboro mutters, eyes narrowed. What an a-hole. Katsuki doesn't say anything, but he sits back down, and that's as good as a verbal agreement for Aizawa. Izuku takes a seat at the empty desk behind Katsuki and his classmates settle down as well upon seeing him move. Then everyone turns to gaze at Aizawa, who stares back at them and sighs. It took you way too long to settle down, he mutters. Or to notice me behind Midoriya. I had to speak for you to do so. I expect better awareness from you all. Then he pulls out a bunch of clothes from his sleeping bag. Grab a gym uniform and meet me at the outdoor training field near the changing rooms. Izuku is the first to arrive at the training ground, thanks to Oboro leading him to anywhere he needs to go, where Aizawa is waiting. Upon noticing him, the teacher steps closer to him. We will be doing a quirk assessment test, the teacher tells him. However, you won't be using your quirk. Izuku can't help but pout at that. The vestiges wouldn't let him train it much at all during vacation. So, he spent the whole time unable to analyze the quirk at all. For a good reason. You should have adult supervision whilst training it. Fifth points out. You all are adults, Izuku shoots back. Living adults, 6 counters. That can help you when Black Whip decides to go out of control. Which it will, it's a bats hit insane quirk. Excuse me? My quirk is perfectly normal, 5 grumbles. Y'all just can't appreciate its positive chaotic energy. There's nothing positive about Cthulhu, 4th mutters. Shut yo. None of that Midoriya, Aizawa interrupts his mental shitshow of a conversation. He's not sure if the sunlight is playing a trick on his eyes, but the underground hero's expression seems softer? It's too dangerous to use a freshly awakened quirk without proper counseling and training. Especially a force-activated one. You could hurt yourself and I'd like to avoid that. I promise you will get to train it soon. That's actually really reassuring. FING finally. Third exclaims suddenly. FING decent teacher. Sheet, I was starting to believe these went extinct, 4th adds. No sheet, 2nd finally joins the conversation. This was starting to feel like Pokemon Go all over again. I thought Izuku would have to go hunting for a decent teacher in some abandoned forest. Pokemon Go? Which installment was that one again? Izuku asks them, trying to remember if he read something about the game. Was it for the Switch? Or did it go further back? Don't think about it, sweetie, First's voice echoes in his mind, that thing ate children's souls. Yeah, it ate yours, 2nd immediately adds. As the vestiges break out into another argument, Izuku's classmates make their way to the place, all dressed in the gym and chattering happily. Upon taking in Oboro's sheet-eating grin and the odd glint in their teacher's eyes, Izuku has a feeling that their happy smiles will be gone soon. He ends up being right about that. Not 5 minutes into the full assessment, the threat of expulsion hangs above all their heads. Not yours, 6 mutters, the school board would be displeased if they expelled you. Yeah, you hold too much power over them right now, 3rd agrees, which is a really scary thought. Izuku tries not to feel offended when almost all of the vestiges voice their agreements. It's not like he would try to overthrow the government if he could or anything. Maybe. I would totally support you if you did, 6th states, thus being his now newly appointed favorite vestige. The others. Oh, this one won't last a whole week, Oboro mutters looking straight at a student, with ball on his head. Izuku can't help but be curious about what these things do, but it's like a morbid kind of curiosity. Like, if he plucks them out, will the kid bleed to death or something? Or will a purple goo shoot out? Or... Stop, 2nd interrupts him. Just FING stop thinking about his ball. 2nd, that sentence. You shut the F up for like forever, 2nd tells 3rd. If you corrupt Izuku, I will find a way to end your existence forever. Izuku ignores them instead, catching Oboro's attention. Once the ghost looks at him, Izuku raises an eyebrow before gazing in Mineta's direction. Oboro, the smart cookie he is, immediately gets his question. He scoffs, eyes narrowing in annoyance and disgust. That little creep is harassing the girl with the ponytail. Izuku's eyes widen slightly before he turns to gaze at Mineta once more, trying to see if he's still trying to do something. He freezes in his place when he sees the guy peeking at her butt. Izuku clicks his tongue in annoyance. We all just got threatened with expulsion and he's still trying to be a pervert? You know what? No. Aizawa-sensei, he calls out and the man turns to face him. Bakugo, upon realizing that Izuku still exists, also turns to him and scoffs. Did you finally remember that you can't do the test without a FING quirk? Bakugo, biha. Izuku interrupts their teacher, no, but Mineta is harassing Yayorozu. Both Aizawa and Bakugo stop talking before turning to look at Mineta. Mineta has somehow progressed from only peeking to trying to touch her and thus definitely has made his own situation even worse. The girl is looking more and more uncomfortable with each second and Izuku's heart aches for her. He's going to buy her cookies or something to cheer her up later for sure. Bakugo, upon catching Mineta trying to grope something, immediately stomps over to the guy and picks him up by the scruff of his shirt. What the F is wrong with you? Really? 5th mutters incredulously, raising an eyebrow, beating you up is okay but he draws the line at being a pervert? Izuku shrugs. Kaken is a pretty decent person, he just really hates my guts. And that's literally it. Auntie Mitsuki put the fear of God into him, so Katsuki has decent enough manners most of the time. The only time he didn't abide by those was when interacting with Izuku. Probably because Auntie Mitsuki and Uncle Masaru never found out about the bullying. Decent manners? He curses like a sailor and calls everyone by names? First points out. That's just Katsuki things. He doesn't do any of these out of ill intent usually. I still don't like him, 6th voices, treating you how he did is not okay, no matter how much of a decent person he supposedly is. And Izuku doesn't know how to feel about that, so he tunes out of the conversation and looks back at the current situation. Ashido is currently hugging Yaoyorozu close, glaring at Mineta. Aizawa has managed to get Bakugo to let go of Mineta. Once that is done, their teacher sighs before addressing Mineta. Go change back into your uniform and then go to the principal's office. Wait there until the assembly is done and Principal Nedzu returns. By then we'll be done here as well and I'll join you. Then Aizawa narrows his eyes, causing Mineta to cower in fear. Prepare yourself, because I'll be making sure that you'll be expelled, no matter what the school board says. Oh, Izuku gasps, he's got family on the board. That's why he's in the hero course. He could be skilled despite his terrible personality, Seventh points out. He could, he agrees. But he wasn't even really trying to hide what he was doing to Yaoyorozu, which means he did so before and got away with it. Otherwise, he wouldn't even have gotten into the admission program. Mineta's records must be clean despite his behavior then. So, the school board. Didn't even last a day. Oboro speaks up now, joining to stand beside Izuku instead of near Aizawa, as he has done so far. At least it's not the whole class just yet. Izuku opens the door to the apartment and frowns, upon seeing that the lights are out. He switches on the lights and locks the door. After he's exchanged his shoes for his house slippers, he walks into the living room and drops his bag onto the couch. It's too quiet in an unsettling way. Even ghosts don't really approach the place, no matter if they can feel his presence there or not. It almost feels abandoned and that bothers Izuku more than he wants to admit. Dinner ends up being a cup of instant ramen because he's too tired to cook anything else and he doesn't know when his mother will be back. He works on his homework in the living room, waiting for his mother to come back. Hours pass and he still doesn't hear the sound of the lock being turned. It's alright, Izuku, First's voice echoes, she'll be back at some point, I'm sure. You should go to bed though, Nana adds, her voice gentle and laced with sympathy, it's already late and you have school tomorrow. Izuku frowns but goes to bed. He can't remember if his mother has taken more shifts at the hospital or if she hasn't. Why can't he remember? The next morning she greets him with a warm, loving smile. Izuku doesn't ask her where she was. Inko doesn't ask him how his first day of school was. She's still unnaturally cold when he hugs her. And what? She just sat there the whole time? Yep, just looked off into space without any reaction whatsoever. Wouldn't even react when people tried to speak to her. Whoa, she must have been possessed then. Stop. Her staring was so creepy. Midoriya. There you are. Izuku turns his attention away from the two giggling girls walking near him to face the approaching ghost. Once Oboro is close enough, he smiles at him in greeting. Good morning, Oboro. Good morning, Oboro greets back, before glancing around in confusion. Oh? Is the other dude not following you around today? I never caught his name. Fifth is resting right now. Oboro whirls upon hearing the voice and stares into green eyes. I'm the first of many, First introduces himself, grinning at the stunned expression on the other ghost's face. Fifth won't be here until the extra training later. What the hell? Oboro mutters, staring right at First before turning his attention to the green-haired student. Just how many ghosts are haunting you? Izuku doesn't even have to think about his reply. 7. Oboro freezes. First's grin widens. Ignoring Oboro's gaping expression, Izuku keeps walking on towards his classroom, having memorized the way the day before. One for All's users are his most prominent ghosts if Izuku is being honest. The reason is probably because they can't leave him at all. They are stuck to him through the contract of the quirk itself, so as long as Izuku owns that quirk, they won't be able to leave him. It's akin to a common haunting and yet it couldn't be more different. With a normal haunting, there's a chance of separation when the ghost decides to move on or gets exorcised. The vestiges couldn't do that even if they tried. They are caged in the quirk itself and passing on is impossible in there. It's rather concerning if he's being honest, but there's not much Izuku can do about all that, so he's got 7 lifelong companions now. 8 whenever All Might kicks the bucket. A thought that unsettles him, but alas, life was created so it would end. No one is above that law. Wait, how did you even get 7 whole ghosts to haunt you? Oboro asks. Are you a serial killer? A broccoli-shaped murder baby? First breaks out in laughter, as Izuku halts in his movements to look at the ghost, putting as much incredulity in his gaze as he can. Oboro gets the hint because he starts to wave his hands in a placating manner, a sheepish grin plastered on his face. Sorry. It could have been, you know? He shakes his head. Nedzu would have sent me straight to the police if that was the case. The ghost shrugs. You never know with him. First moves his hand to pat Izuku's head, not minding how it goes through, as he decides to grace Oboro with an answer. My big brother killed all 7 of us. He's also pretty much going to try and kill Izuku at some point. And okay, he is aware of all for one. The vestiges made sure to tell him immediately about the boogeyman of the underworld who stole quirks for sport. He just wasn't aware that the man was still alive, considering he was pretty much hitting his 200s. He looks at first with a questioning look. 7th told me 8 thinks he's dead? Emphasis on thinks. Which is an action 8 never really tends to do properly. First just replies with a shrug, as if to say, what can you do? Great. Great, the boogeyman of the underworld wants to eat his soul and All Might decided to tell him about that, like, never. Oboro just looks worried. Has this to do with why you have 2 quirks? Izuku shrugs. He's not going to tell Oboro anything. As much as he likes the other, it would be careless of him. Oboro is a ghost and ghosts are mischievous little sheets at heart. There are decent ones, of course, but 2 to 3 good interactions with Oboro aren't enough of proof for Izuku just yet. He knows nothing about Oboro. So, Izuku decides to just let the other ponder about it all. First, though, has a whole other opinion on how to handle that question. Cthulhu obviously isn't a quirk, he says with a gentle smile on his face. He can't trick Izuku though. That glint in his green eyes is familiar to Izuku. It means chaos. Pure, unfiltered chaos. He's an ancient spirit. That motherfucker. Oboro gapes in awe and all Izuku wants to do is to strangle first. 2nd never should have let you out of that bank vault. He tells him. 2nded, 4th adds. Excuse me? You would have been missing out on my shining personality? 1st scoffs at them. No, 4th replies. We could have avoided so many mental breakdowns. For real. Mood. 1st just rolls his eyes at them. Izuku, does that mean Cthulhu willingly listens to you? That's so cool. Nope. Just nope. This time he walks early enough into the classroom to actually talk to his classmates. Immediately, the guy with the glasses approaches him to congratulate him on seeing the true meaning of the exam or whatever. Izuku, however, wants to make friends in high school. Friends that are alive. Friends that aren't 7 mother hen ghosts. So, no matter how awkward he is, he waves the others' praises off and introduces himself. That's when the brown-haired girl joins them. Deku-kun. Oh, hell no, 2nd mutters. What the F is her problem? Ugh, I thought she'd be fine. She looked pretty nice on the exam day. 3rd adds. 4th and 7th just frown. 1st literally glares at her. Correct her, 9th. Otherwise, I'll find a way to do so. Okay, he has to face his anxiety and tell her to stop calling him that or 1st will find a way to murder his classmates. Cool. I guess that's not a nice name? That blonde-haired bully kept calling you like that yesterday, Oboro asks, frowning in uncertainty. It's the worst, 1st almost spits out, his glare darkening, and it's already bad enough that that little sheet keeps calling him it. Izuku bites his lips, anxiety building inside him. It's not the first time the vestiges got mad on behalf of him, but it still surprises him every single time. Especially when it's 1st. 1st is such a peaceful person in principle, so for him to be visibly mad always manages to baffle Izuku. Sometimes, he can't help but feel like the rage on behalf of him is wasted. It's not wasted, Izuku, Nana mutters gently, trying to subtly quell his anxiety. She's right, Izuku. 6th tells him. We will always be mad at any injustice done to you. You are our 9th, after all. We will gladly be angry for you, Izuku. Don't forget, you are our everything. 1st's voice echoes in his mind. Yeah, tell her not to use it then, Oboro mutters to him, eyeing 1st with uneasiness. I doubt she said it out of malice. I'm sure that if you explain she won't mind too much. That's not my name? She tilts her head, a warm smile on her face. I thought it was like a cute nickname. You know, like the word for, you can do it, duh. No, 1st immediately cuts in. Correct her. If she still doesn't stop then, I'll throw fists. Cute nickname my butt, 2nd mumbles. No awareness in this generation. It's, an insult, he tells her, trying to push his anxiety down. She's not going to be mad at him. She won't. And he's right. Her eyes widen, and she frowns. Guilt laces her expression. Sorry, I didn't realize. I won't call you that then. Your name? Midoriya Izuku, he tells her, trying to hide how relieved he feels. I'm sorry, Midoriya-kun. I really didn't know. Although now where I think about it, Bakugo-kun doesn't exactly sound that nice when he says it. The warm smile returns. I'm Uraraka Ochako, it's nice to meet you too. Ida Tenya, the kid with the glasses introduces himself. It's a pleasure to make your acquaintance. 1st smiles at Uraraka. Good on her. I was worried we would have to escalate things. Izuku doesn't want to know what escalating things means. He really doesn't. Midoriya-kun, a voice calls out to him and he turns to face Yaoyorozu, who is approaching their little trio. My name is Yaoyorozu Momo, although feel free to call me Momo. Once she's close enough, she bows in gratitude. Thank you for yesterday, Midoriya-kun. And no, need to thank me, he stutters out. I just happened to notice and, it's be basic decency to do something. Momo smiles at him. That might be true, however, it's still not always a given that people speak up. Thank you for doing so. She's right. Ashido voices out, joining them. She grins cheerfully at Izuku. I'm Ashido Mina and we're friends now. Izuku blinks. You just got adopted by an extrovert, Third tells him. Which is a good thing. You desperately needed to be adopted by one. I like her, Fifth adds, she's got confidence which you severely lack. Izuku talks a bit longer with his classmates, smiling each time a new one joins their group to introduce themselves to him. He's not used to all these people close to his age interacting with him. When the time for the bell to ring approaches, Ida calls out for everyone to get seated and they do so. Aizawa nods when he walks into the whole class sitting quietly. Is there a reason you're crouching behind the trash can? Izuku blinks at Oboro before glancing at the empty hallway. Well, almost empty hallway. There's a ghost there floating around the place. I'm trying to avoid the spirit over there, he mumbles. Wait. Why? Interacting with spirits is exhausting, he just replies, sighing. You're fine because you obviously are haunting someone specific. That someone being Aizawa-sensei. Then Izuku gestures to the spirit. That one? He's definitely not haunting anyone in particular, which means he's going to F with everyone that comes across him. Ghosts are little sheets like that. What do ghosts usually do? Oboro asks, tilting his head slightly. I never really stray too far from Shoyuta, so I dunno. You couldn't leave Aizawa-sensei, even if you tried to, Izuku replies without thought. He was present when you died, right? How do you know that? Your connection, he just mutters, without explaining properly. Anyway, ghosts that aren't bound to a person or a place or whatever, just tend to wander around usually. People don't always immediately cross over when they die. Case in point, Oboro. Sometimes it's because some sort of desire is still unfulfilled and the desire is strong enough to keep them tethered to the plane of the living. A desire for revenge for their murder is a common example. Or there were strong feelings involved during their death. For example, someone's lover could potentially tether the spirit of their deceased partner to themselves out of immense grief. It happens all the time. Or the deceased absolutely refuses to leave someone behind, be it their pet or their parent. That's how a common haunting is formed. Spirits can haunt places, people, objects, anything that strongly means something to them. The best example would be the vestiges of OFA, actually. After all, they felt so strongly about the whole thing, they are now haunting a whole FING Quirk, and by proxy, Izuku. That whole situation is such a shitshow. It's not that ghosts who don't haunt anyone don't have some sort of purpose or desire, he explains to Oboro, as he keeps observing the spirit. It's just that that desire is too weak to properly bind them to something, so they get to wander around without restraints. A connection, a bond formed through a haunting grounds ghosts. Keeps most of them reasonable enough to actually interact with them. So, when ghosts lack such a thing, it's usually a coin toss on wherever they'll be harmless or wherever they'll try to maul Izuku apart. And Izuku just doesn't want to be torn apart in the hallways of UA. It's then that Izuku realizes something. Oboro, he mumbles, keeping his voice extra quiet, you don't know much about ghosts, do you? Oboro frowns, cheeks slightly red. I only really talk to the spirits, of people Shoyuta couldn't save in time occasionally? But usually, there aren't many of these and well, UA usually doesn't have any other spirits, so I'm kinda surprised to see one here. They are probably here because of Izuku, First explains. Ghosts can sort of sense his presence and are drawn to it, so UA is going to have an influx of ghosts soon. Izuku agrees with a nod. In that case, I'll teach you a bit of ghost etiquette right now. Ghost etiquette? Yes, listen closely. Interacting with other ghosts should be okay for you, but you still have to be careful. Make sure they are somewhat sane and grounded. If they aren't, avoid them at all costs. Sane and grounded? I told you connections help ghosts stay grounded, right? They are a sort of protection for ghosts too. When a ghost, such as you, has a connection, they are more likely to retain their sense of self and thus their sanity. Without a connection, time will eventually drag a ghost into insanity. They'll start to forget things, their previous humanity. The moment that happens, you'll have what storybooks call poltergeists. But, like, the really bad kind. They don't care for reason at all and let their negative emotions carry them through their existence. When they get that bad, they can use these emotions to fuel their energy, and well, like that they'll be able to interact with the world of the living and cause actual harm. Are you with me so far? Oboro nods, eyes wide with shock. So, be careful. In general, don't trust ghosts too easily. Although, I have a feeling that won't be an issue for you. Ghosts get bored, so they like to cause mischief. Occasionally, they luck out and get enough energy that their pranks end up affecting humans. Shoving a cup off a table takes like no energy. Izuku pouts in annoyance and first grins. Ninth, here, is sometimes a source of energy for the ghosts. Against my will. You're getting a lot better at controlling it. Oboro nods. Makes sense. I always feel a bit more energized when around you. Yep. I have to ask though, Oboro starts, what's with the numeral addressing you all do? Izuku perks up. Oh, right. That's the most important rule you have to follow. He looks directly at Oboro. Don't let other ghosts know your real name. Oboro blinks. What? A heavy weight settles inside him. Izuku never really likes talking about that aspect much. Ghosts are nothing but deceased people. They have nothing left. Oboro flinches and Izuku's heart aches for him. It's the bitter truth though, and Izuku won't be as cruel as to cover it with sugar-sweet lies. Nothing but their identities. With some exceptions, most ghosts still remember who they were before they died. They cling to that information and thus it becomes everything to them. The plane of the dead doesn't work in the same way as the one of the living. Logic has nothing to do there. Because their identities are bestowed with great importance, they hold a lot of power among the dead. The power can be turned into energy. Identities can be stolen. He's seen it happen a few times and it never ended well. If a ghost with ill intent gets your name, they will have control over you. That will give them countless of possibilities over you. Either they'll control you, or they take you over, or drain you. Just not good things. You'll be as good as gone, and since you have a connection to Aizawa-sensei he'll be in the crossfire. It could endanger Shouta? Oboro asks as his gaze wanders to stare at first. Possibly, depending on how much energy that evil spirit would have, First explains, although you won't have to worry about any of us seven. We are not normal ghosts. We can't really act on our own without Ninth's permission. Yeah, it would take a lot of energy before anything would happen to Aizawa-sensei, and if that ghost is exorcised before anything can happen, everyone will be okay. Wait, can ghosts steal humans' identities? Usually not, First answers. First off, humans are on the plane of the living so the rules of the dead don't really apply to them. And well, humans are more grounded than ghosts could ever be. Usually? First's gaze wanders to Izuku. Izuku is the exception, he explains. Thanks to his ability, he's halfway into the plane of the dead. That makes it possible for ghosts to go after his identity. First smiles at Oboro's visible concern. However, his identity is not tied to his name and few ghosts tend to figure that out, so nothing ever happens. Well then, Shiro-chan, Izuku mutters. Let's head back. I don't want to try to get past that spirit today. Shiro-chan? You got white, fluffy hair which looks like it's made out of clouds. Actually, does that have something to do with your quirk or is that just a mutation? Oh yeah, my quirk. Where were you during the break, Midoriya-kun? Momo asks him. I was hiding from a G-ghost. What? Oh, I meant I was hiding in a hallway. Oh, that makes sense, Kaminari joins the conversation. I thought you said you were hiding from ghosts. Which makes, no sense. I don't believe in ghosts, Kaminari-kun. Izuku lies as easily as he breathes. I was just very anxious today. Yeah, anxiety SCKS, Kirishima speaks up. You can spend the next break with us, okay? Yes, Momo agrees with a nod. We all would be happy to spend time with you. How cute, First chuckles, I can't wait to scare the sheet out of them. As much as he admires and respects All Might, Izuku isn't sure if the man has taken any time to think the battle simulation properly through. I want to strangle him so bad, Third complains. Seriously, what the hell is he doing? Nana. Listen here, Nana replies, there's no one here who wants to kill him more right now than me. No one. He's trying, Izuku mutters, not believing his own words, it's his first job as a teacher. For which he didn't even study, Sixth adds. You all are going to die. And well. He doesn't necessarily disagree with Sixth. Not with the way, All Might hasn't even given them any of the safety protocol lectures that Aizawa mentioned to him during their meeting. Izuku freezes at that. Aizawa-sensei probably doesn't know about this, he points out, fully horrified. Fifth breaks out in laughter. Tashinari is so dead after this. Nana sighs, clearly suffering. His heart goes out to her. She chose Tashinari as her successor so all the smack for his decisions is partially going to her. It's not like All Might can hear the vestiges, after all. This is concerning, though, First eventually points out, drawing everyone's attention. Remember the sludge villain? I don't think I'm ever going to forget that, Third mutters. Plus, Ninth has nightmares about it occasionally. Sorry, Izuku mutters, abashed. He really wishes he could stop having them, but they still pop up occasionally. Third replies, voice softer than before, not your fault. Kiddo. Alright, he mumbles. Then he focuses on First's words again. What about the sludge villain? After he rescued you, he didn't call any medical aid to the scene. Izuku blinks. I was fine though? Because you were lucky, Ninth, Second tells him. There are a lot of possible complications that could have happened if you had any less luck. Don't underestimate health issues through unsanitary environments. You had that dumb sludge in your throat, anything could have happened. Oh. He never really took a moment to consider any of that, too caught up in the whole successor thing. Which is concerning. Secondary drowning is a thing, isn't it? Izuku pales at the realization that things could have taken a worse turn if he was any less fortunate. Exactly, First agrees with Second. Today isn't the first time Tashinari disregards the safety and health precautions of something, which is quite concerning. He has become a bit more careless with stuff like that over time, Third voices. He tends to be a bit less gentle when rescuing people and rushes through things. Probably because of the time limit, Izuku muses. That's no excuse, Nana points out, sounding conflicted. He should know better than to disregard people's safety. I doubt Tashinari has malicious intentions, Seventh, First reassures her. But Ninth is right. The time limit must be pressuring him to rush, and well, how long has it been since he truly had to handle the administrative and organizational responsibilities of his hero work fully by himself? Right, whenever he rescues someone it's usually at a big scene with a large crowd, so someone's bound to have notified the medical assistants and the police beforehand, Sixth adds. And his agency handles all that for him usually, Fourth mumbles. He pretty much didn't have to keep track of these things on his own at all. That doesn't make it any better. Nina sighs. But it explains it. The vestiges hum in agreement. Izuku frowns as he processes their words. The vestiges were undeniably right, and as much that causes conflicts inside him, Izuku isn't about to pretend that everything's fine like that. There's no way All Might means any harm, but his actions could cause harm regardless of his intentions. It doesn't feel right to just leave the situation like that. He glances up and observes his classmates. Usually, he would use this chance to analyze his classmates, but at the moment, he can't bring himself to. Not when he has to think about his stupid matchup with Katsuki and the fact that All Might probably isn't even supposed to hold this battle simulation. If he really thinks about it for once, he understands just why it's such a bad idea, no matter how exciting it sounds. They are literally untrained kids. Quirk use in public is prohibited without a license. The only way to train them is through Quirk counseling sessions or at home. The counseling sessions, however, do only cover the basics. The minimal amount to make sure neither the user nor the people around him are in danger. Training at home on your own is too dangerous and usually is only done when you have someone to train you, who knows what they are doing. Speak, families with pro heroes in them. People like Todoroki or Ida probably already had some training with their quirk and maybe even combat. Ajaru mentioned that he attends a dojo, so he's also trained. But what about the rest of them? How are they supposed to know what they can do or can't? And the random matchups are concerning too. What would All Might have done if someone like Todoroki ended up facing Azui? Izuku doesn't know just how far Azui's frog mutation affects her and her physical conditions. He doubts All Might had the time and capacity to read and memorize all their files. Frogs go into hibernation when faced with a temperature drop. She wouldn't be able to defend herself then. Plus, she's still human, so who knows what her being in hibernation would do to her health. It could affect her brain negatively, for example. How mutations affect someone varies from case to case, and there's no way to find out except in controlled environments with cautiously planned training. The battle simulation is a terrible idea. And it makes him think about Aizawa's quirk assessment. He's starting to understand why the teacher chose to do it. They need to know their limits, so they can avoid damaging themselves or others. There's no point in fighting each other if they can't do it safely. I admit I'm kinda disappointed, Oboro mumbles, floating beside him. He frowns at the screen, where they can see some of Izuku's classmates fight. I dunno what I expected from All Might, but it sure wasn't something so careless. Then he turns to face Izuku and First. I can tell you for sure, that show didn't approve of this. I figured, Izuku whispers, gazing down. What are you even going to do? Oboro asks him. You're not allowed to use your quirk just yet. Izuku's eyes widen as he stares up at Oboro and his heart drops down to his stomach. He gazes at First, who looks back at him with concern. That's going to be difficult to keep up with Bakugo around, first states, narrowing his eyes. He definitely will use this chance to take his anger out on you. I can't use my quirk. Aizawa-sensei will be mad, Izuku points out, too overwhelmed to speak properly. What am I going to do? Kaken will target me, there's no doubting that. Oboro tilts his head, curiously staring at them. I don't know what's going on with you, but can't you just explain why you won't be able to use your quirk? In the first place, I don't understand why All Might doesn't know yet. He should have been informed about all of this way before you were. He knows Oboro is right and he should just go and tell All Might. But if he's honest, he's too anxious to do so. What if All Might won't listen to him? What if he'll be disappointed in Izuku for not using his quirk? What if he decides Izuku isn't a good enough successor and demands the quirk BA? Stop that, Sixth chides, appearing beside him. Oboro yelps upon noting the other's sudden appearance. What the hell? Where did you come from? Sixth doesn't answer, instead trying to ruffle Izuku's hair. His hand makes contact with it for a few seconds before it goes back through the hair. He won't take it back, he tells Izuku, mindful of Oboro's presence. We wouldn't let him anyway. Take it back? Oboro asks. Nothing that concerns you, First shuts him down. And we shouldn't discuss it out in the open. Sixth nods. You'll be fine, Ninth. We're on your side, no matter what. The other vestiges express their agreement inside his head and First smiles at him. Right, he's not alone anymore. Izuku gazes up when he hears his name being called. He can do this. He couldn't do it at all. That's why he's in the nurse's office at the moment, trying to hold his tears back and failing spectacularly at it. He is going to be so mad, Izuku stutters as he begins to sob. I didn't mean to use the Q quirk. No. I promise you, that Shoyuta won't be mad at you. Oboro sits beside him, shaking his head gently as he frowns. You had no choice but to use your quirk. He's right, Sixth speaks up, if you didn't use your quirk you'd probably be dead. Oboro halts upon hearing those words and averts his gaze. Yeah, you would have died. Izuku wipes his tears away with the sleeve of his gym uniform and looks questioningly at the ghost. Are you alright, Eshiro-chan? I don't get it, Oboro finally replies after minutes of silence. Why the hell didn't All Might stop that a-hole? He literally tried to murder you. Izuku doesn't know how to respond to that. Luckily for him, he doesn't have to because at that moment the door opens and Recovery Girl walks in with Aizawa trailing behind her. Izuku flinches at the sight of his homeroom teacher. Oh god, he must be so disappointed in Izuku. He couldn't even do the one thing the teacher requested of him. His eyes wander to the ground, too afraid to see the mad expression on his teacher's face. We couldn't reach your mother again, Recovery Girl explains, sighing. However, we cannot send you home alone like this. Aizawa will be driving you home. Izuku freezes. No. There's no way he can bother his teacher like that. It's fine, he mutters, I'm sure her shift will end soon, and I wouldn't want to be bother. Midoriya, Aizawa cuts in. Izuku blinks. Aizawa's voice sounds gentle. Slowly, lifts his head to stare at his teacher, digging his nails into his skin. Oh, the teacher doesn't look mad. It's alright, kid. I don't mind driving you home, the underground hero assures him. You're not bothering anyone, his eyes seem to say. Izuku can't bring himself to speak anymore, so he nods his head. In that moment, there's a knock on the door and All Might opens the door. Aizawa narrows his eyes at the other hero. What are you doing here? Aizawa asks and his voice sounds sharp, like he's trying to cut the other hero apart with his words only. Aizawa-san, All Might greets the teacher, flinching slightly. I'm only checking up on young Midoriya. Flinching slightly? Izuku blinks. First drawls, smiling slightly, Aizawa spent the past hour chewing him out. It was really fun, top 10 moments of my life. You have a top 10 for your life? Yep, First answers Oboro. Meeting Ninth is like number 2 on the list. What's the first one? He asks. My brother's expression when he realized I passed OFA. That sheet was hilarious, Second adds. He looked so betrayed and utterly confused at the same time. Midoriya, Aizawa calls out and his attention snaps back to the situation. Why yes? All Might has something to say to you. He looks at the number 1 hero, tilting his head slightly. With a glance at Aizawa, All Might turns to face him, a remorseful gaze on his face. I would like to apologize, young Midoriya, All Might tells him. With the amount of guilt laced through his words, it's clear that the hero is being sincere. Something about that realization calms Izuku down. You should never have gotten hurt this badly, All Might tells him, I'm sorry for not doing anything to prevent the situation. Aizawa sighs, a frown on his face. Although, he stopped glaring at the number 1 hero. That's why you'll be discussing your lesson plans with Mike from now on. Of course. You better, Recovery Girl chimes in. If a student gets a serve wounds Midoriya this time once more. All Might gulps in apparent fear. Izuku doesn't blame him, the youthful heroine's glare looks a lot scarier than Aizawa's. The student looks at All Might once more, searching his blue eyes for a hint of something. The hero nods. We will talk later again. But his gaze is warm and reassuring. Don't worry, Nana mutters. Toshi is worried about you, that's all. Yeah, Third agreed. You should have seen him when your teacher scolded him. He was seconds away from fainting in fear, but he still kept trying to ask him if you were all right. Izuku smiles at the hero. Let's go, Midoriya, Aizawa speaks up. Sue, Oboro drawls, why does All Might look at you like you're his precious child? Eyes widening, Izuku breaks out in startled coughs. Midoriya, are you all right? Why yes. He answers his teacher, ignoring Oboro's expectant gaze. When Izuku unlocks the door to the apartment, it becomes very quickly clear that his mother isn't home. The lights are off and there's no noise as well as no response when he calls out for her. His heart drops down to his stomach as the realization hits him. It's already past 5 and she's not supposed to have night shifts on Tuesdays. Biting down on his lips as he tries to push the concern down, Izuku takes a glance at his homeroom teacher. The man has accompanied him upstairs in hope to have a talk with his mother about the injuries Izuku sustained from the battle simulation. There were, after all, broken bones and at least second-degree burns involved. Izuku has to stop himself from flinching upon seeing the frown on his teacher's face. He glances to the side, where Oboro hovers, for a moment. He can't fully place the expression on the ghost's face but he seems somewhat somber. Midoriya, Aizawa eventually speaks up, immediately drawing his attention. Until when does your mother work? Izuku averts his gaze, unable to face his teacher. Izuku is self-aware enough to understand that the man won't like his answer. I don't know, he mutters as quietly as he can, hoping the man wouldn't understand him. He knows she isn't supposed to work the later shifts on Tuesdays, but he refuses to tell as much to his teacher. He's aware that will just make this whole situation seem worse than it is. You don't know? But it's futile. Aizawa hears him well enough. He just nods his head in response, still too anxious to take a glance at his teacher. He's not sure how he would cope with seeing utter disappointment or annoyance on his teacher's face. He's already giving that man so much work with the stunt he pulled during the entrance exam. Izuku, Oboro mumbles, sounding distressed. He doesn't acknowledge the ghost and lets the silence settle down around them. It lasts for a good few minutes before his teacher sighs softly. He seems oddly resigned. How often is she gone this late? 2 to 3, Izuku trails off, freezing in the midst of his words. 2 to 3 days. That would be his usual answer. His mother couldn't get around taking the night shifts, they needed the money to make ends meet. However, she always refuses to take them the whole week, too concerned to leave him alone at night the whole time. On the days where she would be out at night, she'd at least text him or call him to check in before his bedtime. Or at least she used to do that. At some point she suddenly started to take the later shifts constantly and she stopped checking in upon him. He only seldom saw her in the evenings. He doesn't understand what changed. He hasn't even noticed that something changed. How self-absorbed was his with the Quirk and training, that he hasn't taken notice of the sudden distance between them. Izuku feels sick, tears forming at the corner of his eyes. Midoriya? He snaps out of his thoughts, finally taking a glance at his teacher. Aizawa looks at him with concern visible in his eyes. Lifting an arm, he rubs at his eyes before re-attempting an answer. He wants to lie, wants to continue to believe that everything is fine, but he's unsettled. I don't know, he admits, it used to be only 2 to 3 days but, her schedule seems to have changed without me realizing. He can feel the vestiges humming in his mind, trying to comfort him. A feeling of gratefulness washes over him. Aizawa nods, frowning once again. I'm not going to lie to you, Midoriya. This is rather concerning. We had trouble reaching your mother every single time we tried to contact her. Then he gives Izuku a pointed look. Don't think we haven't noticed the lack of a second emergency contact on your paperwork. Izuku flinches, averting his gaze. I'm sorry, there was just no one else. No one? Not even your father? Another relative? He shakes his head. My father moved to America when I was younger, and broke off all contact. As for other relatives? My mom and me are on our own. His grandparents died when he was really young. He can't remember much of them, except that they kept being nice to him despite his quirk status. Must have been the generational difference in views of the quirkless population. Glancing at his teacher, Izuku can't help but feel guilty. The man shouldn't have to spend his evening like that. It's It's alright, Aizawa-sensei, he eventually says, trying his best not to avert his gaze. He should try to look as confident as possible. Know how to look after myself. I've been doing it for a while now, is left unsaid. Aizawa sighs in response. Did he say something wrong? It feels like his heart is racing. His fingers twitch in anxiety, and Izuku immediately intertwines his hands, trying to calm them down. Maybe he shouldn't have said anything. He didn't want to offend his teacher. As if he's able to read his thoughts, Aizawa's gaze softens before he slowly but reassuringly puts a hand on Izuku's shoulder, squeezing gently. The gesture somehow calms him down. I'm not mad at you, Midoriya, the teacher explains himself, his demeanor a lot more mellowed out than Izuku is used from him. I am, however, concerned. The unfortunate truth about hero training is that you kids will get injured, that's unavoidable in most cases. Then he narrows his eyes. A bitter expression settles on his face and Izuku can't help but think there's something else behind it, something more personal. Although the extent of your injuries should never have reached today's level and definitely not, Aizawa abruptly halts in the midst of talking, gazing to the side. Startled, Izuku realizes that his teacher seems frustrated. You should never have gotten this injured and definitely never in a teacher-supervised training exercise, Aizawa mutters, scoffing a bit before muttering under his breath, Yagi, you absolute buffoon. The hero shakes his head, sighing. Sorry. My point is, hero training is dangerous and as much we try our best to prevent any serious injuries they still have a chance of occurring, as proven today. There will be situations where we'll have to get a student medical help be it through Recovery Girl or through medical staff in a hospital. However, neither Recovery Girl nor a hospital are completely fail-safe. There will be times when we cannot afford to let a student unsupervised after getting medical attention. Anything could happen. The teacher treads a hand through his hair, seemingly more and more exhausted with each passing second. Admittingly, in a hospital they'll just keep you the night for observation if anything is wrong or worrisome. But with today's situation? We all can be grateful that Chiyo's quirk was able to heal a large part of your injuries today. That won't be always possible. Most times, you won't have enough energy for a full healing session. That's especially concerning when you get brain injuries like concussions. We simply cannot let you go home when we know there won't be anyone to observe your health, and staying at the nurse offices overnight isn't always possible. Do you understand where I'm coming from, Midoriya? Izuku nods his head, unable to formulate a response. There isn't anything he could say anyway. It's not like Aizawa is wrong. They sit in silence for a while as Izuku tries to make sense out of the situation. He's not sure what he's supposed to say at that point. His mother still isn't home and they've been at the apartment for at least half an hour now. I'm going to inform Principal Nedzu of your situation, Aizawa tells him. He'll most likely try to contact your mother once more tomorrow to schedule a talk about this whole situation. If, for some reason, we still won't be able to get in touch with her, we might need to contact the proper authorities for an investigation. Izuku startles, eyes widen. But Midoriya, this might classify as child neglect. That sentence immediately shuts Izuku up. Child neglect? You're barely 15 years old and therefore, still very much a child. It's not okay for her to be gone the whole time. As your teacher I feel uncomfortable knowing you're essentially raising yourself for most of the time. Izuku doesn't respond. Since you haven't had any brain injury and are still capable of moving, I'll leave you alone for today. I'm coming to pick you up tomorrow morning though, and then we'll look further, his teacher explains. Then the man mutters, maybe I'll be able to talk to her as well, if she's home then. Alright. However. Aizawa grabs a notepad and a pen out of one of his pockets. He tears a piece of paper off the pad after scribbling down a telephone number on it. Here is my number. If something happens or your injuries get worse, call me. I mean it, Midoriya. No writing anything off. Lying on the couch, Izuku stares blankly at the wall. It's past 2 a.m. and his mother is still not home. A part of him wants nothing more than to bask in the comfort of her presence and warm hugs, although her body is getting colder and colder with each passing day. Another part of him is frustrated. So, Izuku waits for her. The longer Izuku waits for his mother to come home, the less he wants to see her. It should be the other way around, but the truth is that he's too anxious to face her. What would he even say? She's been gone the whole day with no text message or phone call to inform him about her whereabouts. His mother never used to do that before. It would have made her too anxious to not inform him. She barely wanted to leave him alone some days, too scared that something would happen. Now she apparently has no problem with doing that. He also feels slightly guilty for never properly picking up that something is just wrong. Glazed over eyes and skin that sometimes seems slightly bluish. Morning comes and he does not move away from the couch, does not go to bed and sleep even though he should. With 0 hours of proper rest, Izuku greets his teacher at the door, a frown on his face. Aizawa looks at him with worry all written over his face. There is something else in his gaze, something knowing. It's not out of pity or sorrow, but it leaves Izuku just as bitter. Nedzu will be able to track her down, Midoriya, his teacher assures him. Let's go, recovery girl would like to check your remaining injuries once more. Izuku bites his lips to trap the protests on his tongue. He doesn't want to see her but he's worried about his mother. Izuku is frustrated and tired. But he is also very concerned. Izuku doesn't attend morning classes because Aizawa and recovery girl make him take a nap in the nurse's office, otherwise, he won't have enough energy to get properly healed. When he wakes up, he's of course not alone. In a way, he never really is. Oboro perks up from his spot on the windowsill. The ghost's eyes shimmer like the ocean, as a bright grin settles on his face. Izuku can't remember if he's ever seen such a vivid eye color on a ghost before. The colors usually seem more dulled, due to their transparency. Lifeless. Hello there, sleeping beauty, Oboro greets him. Have you found a prince in your dream, or did you wake up to one? The ghost wildly gestures at himself. Izuku sighs, a weak grin forming on his face. Ah? I preferred the one in my dream. Oboro splutters, a gaze of disbelief on his face. Excuse me? I'm the #1 Prince Charming out there. Izuku chuckles at the ghost's antics, feeling a lot lighter than before. He can hear the humming of Seventh in the back of his mind. It helps to keep him calm. After mumbling a quiet thank you to her, he glances back at Oboro. Izuku frowns when he sees the serious gaze on his face. Whatever conversation they are about to have won't be an easy one. Listen, Oboro begins to talk, hovering closer to the bed Izuku is resting on. I can tell you don't like the thought of your mother being accused of neglect. And Izuku is right. This conversation is going to be uncomfortable, perhaps even frustrating. The thing is, the ghost is right. He's still not entirely convinced that his mother did anything wrong, because he knows she had to make a lot of sacrifices to raise him. She had to constantly adjust to anything thrown their way to keep them afloat. It has never been easy, not with Quirkless printed on his identification card. But she did, and she never outright complained about it. Izuku isn't naive. He knows his mother often felt frustrated with the situation and with him for being the indirect cause of it. However, it isn't correct to punish her for that. Feeling frustration is normal and she never lashed out at him for it. In fact, she's always been kind in spite of how the world tried to drag her down with him, simply for keeping him. But recently she's been growing more distant. Of course, he noticed the odd signs before yesterday, but he convinced himself that nothing was wrong and, eventually, he just didn't have any energy or time to pay attention, too busy training with all might. Yesterday, however, he couldn't avoid the signs. Seeing the way Aizawa's expression went from a slight mix of exhaustion and annoyance to outright concern left Izuku distressed. Because so far, Aizawa has been rational with everything he did. It's been only 2 days, but to Izuku, who spent a lot of time talking with the teacher, it was plain to see. Aizawa explained all his actions and backed up his decisions. She didn't come home at all. Izuku can't just write off his teacher's concerns. He can't keep pretending everything is fine. Shouta means well, Oboro continues to speak. He just wants to make sure your class succeeds whilst staying alive and healthy. He's not just throwing words around. Izuku knows that. And I get that you love your mother, but this isn't right, Izuku. It's just my mom had to sacrifice a lot for me, and I don't. Izuku tries to explain his thoughts but trails off mid-sentence. He's not even sure why he's trying. He doesn't feel any ounce of conviction at the moment. Sacrificing things for your child is normal, Oboro tells him immediately. Izuku looks at him in disbelief. Seeing his expression, the ghost elaborates, I'm not saying a parent has to fully throw their life away for their child, but children need a lot of attention and care. Wherever they like it or not, a parent has to sacrifice their comfort and their desires to an extent. Their child has to come first. Maybe that sounds a bit harsh, but usually a parent is aware of that when they decide to have a child. They know they will have to offer up a lot, and they usually do it, because they decide their child is worth the price. Oboro leans closer. And if later on they decide they can't handle raising a child, there are still things they can do to ensure they don't end up harming the child more than they need. 2. Signing off custody. In the end, it's still a better option than neglecting a child. Both ways have long-term consequences, but one comes out of a place of care usually and the other doesn't. Oboro frowns. Both ways SCK, though. No matter which one, the child is the one mostly suffering from it. My point is, your mother has options if she's unable to make these sacrifices. So, this is not on you, Midoriya. Nothing here is your fault. Especially, not her neglect. At that moment, the door opens and recovery girl walks in. Please repeat that. With each passing second, Shouta considers taking a long vacation. Obviously, he can't do that because he has a new class to teach, and so far, only one student has been demoted to general studies. It's Mineta's last chance at showing remorse through redeeming his behavior. If Hisashi and therapy with Inui cannot help him with that, then Shouta doubts that anything else will. But he can dream about that vacation. Far away from that school. Somewhere with a lot of sunshine, the most optimal condition for napping. As said, Shirakumo, Nedzu says, frowning for once, I've found Midoriya Izuku's location and requested Tsukachi-kun to send his team out to fetch her. Fetch her? Shouta raises an eyebrow in question. That's when a certain glint enters his boss' eyes. One that tells Shouta that many headaches are awaiting him in future. Nedzu found a puzzle in this situation, something unexplainable, that he couldn't just solve on the spot. According to the cameras, Midoriya Izuku has been sitting on a random bench in the Muzutafu Central Park since yesterday at 5 p.m. She hasn't moved nor reacted to anything once during that time. Shouta stills. What? Even as Tsukachi-kun's team went to apprehend her, she barely moved or said anything. Just let them take her to the station without any reaction whatsoever. They tried to get her to talk, but she only kept muttering about yesterday's dinner. Otherwise, she remained still. Nedzu stops talking to take a sip of his tea before he continues. Considering she wouldn't say anything even when prompted to talk about her son, she's going to remain at the station for a bit before she'll be transferred to the Muzutafu General Hospital for a checkup. The room seems colder than it is. Regardless of what happens, everyone at the police station agrees that Midoriya-san won't be able to act as someone's primary caretaker for the unforeseeable future. The underground hero takes a few minutes to process that all. No wonder Nedzu was invested. This was certainly starting to seem more concerning with each passing second. Shouta shakes his head, shoving the uncertainties, worries and discomfort to the side. He can fret about these things later. At the moment, there's only one thing he needs to concern himself with. He looks up to face his boss once more. Nedzu, what is going to happen with Midoriya Izuku? And that's why I'm taking care of you for the unforeseeable future. Dull green eyes stare up at him. Depending on how the light shines on them, Shouta can almost see a glimmer of silver in them for a moment, only to be gone once the light moves. That, somehow, makes the kid's gaze seem even more unsettling. The lack of sleep must be getting to him. Shouta holds back a sigh and waits for the kid to speak up. Although he just wants to move on and be done with the conversation, he knows Midoriya is going to need time to process his words. The teacher isn't exactly sure what kind of reaction he's expecting. Usually, it would be a mix of discomfort and sadness, but the truth is, Shouta cannot read the kid in front of him as well as he wishes he could. No, that's not it. He's able to tell when Midoriya is anxious or when he lacks confidence. It's more like he cannot read what Midoriya is going to do or what he is going to say or what his response will be. No matter what he notes of Midoriya's behavior, the kid always ends up surprising him even more. For example, due to his anxious and withdrawn behavior, he assumed the kid would stick with his two friends from the first day, Uraraka and Ida. Midoriya doesn't seem like someone who would approach others on his own volition, so Shouta assumed he'd have to put him into different group and partner combinations during assignments later on. He assumed wrong. Somehow, Midoriya went out of his way to befriend over half of the class. He didn't stop there either. Vlad has noticed the green-haired student hanging out with some kids from his class. Hisashi mentioned the same. Even Namiri has seen him around her class a few times. That alone left Shouta puzzled. Although it's good that the kid went out of his way to make many acquaintances, everything about his usual behavior suggests that he wouldn't be the type to do that. Shouta had expected Kirishima, Kaminari, and Ishido to be the ones making friends left and right. Another confusing thing would be the kids' grades so far. They haven't written many exams yet, but the teacher can already tell that there's something up with Midoriya's grades. He's already planning to go over the kids' exams once he has a bit more time. Shouta is torn out of his thoughts when he notices Midoriya moving to hold onto the straps of his backpack. I'm sorry for the trouble, Aizawa-sensei. Shouta frowns. Sure, it's a bit annoying to suddenly have to look after a kid, but that's something Shouta signed up for when he accepted the teaching position at UA. As a teacher at a hero school, he is required to have a foster license. The reason is simple, it's because they are teaching hero students. When cases similar to Midoriya's happen, a person in the hero industry needs to foster the student until a long-term solution can be found. There are certain mental burdens hero students often take on that normal civilians outside the field cannot comprehend. Therefore, social workers specialized in hero students exist and hero teachers need foster licenses. Plus, Shouta would rather take in the kid for the meantime than leave him on his own, whilst they try to figure out what's wrong with his mother. Midoriya, he says, prompting the kid to look up at him. There's absolutely no reason for you to apologize. None of this is your fault. He can still see the flickers of doubt and uncertainty in the kid's eyes. Of course, it'll take a while for the kid to understand and believe that. I don't mind looking after you, he adds, trying to convey his sincerity through the tone of his voice. It's been a while since I've fostered a kid. I just need to readjust a little bit, but that's nothing of concern. Midoriya nods his head, but Shouta can tell the kid still doesn't believe him. There's nothing he can do about that at the moment if he's honest. Such things are often a product of time. The kid needs to see that there's nothing he should be worried about, and that can only happen if Shouta lets him exist in peace, without spewing countless reassurances that won't reach the kid. For now, Midoriya really just needs time to adjust. Who knows, perhaps his mother will be back to normal before then. Though if he's honest, Shouta doubts that. He's only seen a camera feed of her since then and her eyes seem downright empty. No matter what the issue is, it's bad enough that it'll definitely take a while for her to get even a bit better. We'll go and pick up some of your stuff after classes are done for today. Izuku doesn't get much time to comprehend the new turn of events, because the moment he steps out of Aizawa's office, All Might is waiting for him in the teacher's lounge. His mentor asks him to eat lunch with him, so Izuku agrees. Previously, he wanted to go join his classmates in the cafeteria to get to know them better, but this works out for him as well. In the last few days Izuku didn't have many chances to talk with his mentor. He was too busy adjusting to his new schedule, dealing with all the complications that came from having a newly registered quirk, and now there is something wrong with his mother. Izuku gnaws at his lip, as something uncomfortable coils around in his stomach. Whatever is going on with her, it must be terrible considering UA and the Mizurufu police department had to get involved. They are suspecting a quirk may be involved in it, but they haven't confirmed anything yet. Young Midoriya? Izuku startles out of his thoughts and glances at All Might. Right. His eyes wander around the room until they meet Sixth's. He apologized for the battle simulation once again, Sixth tells him. Oh right. That? To be honest, with the whole situation concerning his mother, Izuku didn't think much about it. Aizawa clearly wasn't mad at him and Recovery Girl healed him up well enough. If anything, the whole event led to him realizing that Aizawa genuinely seemed to care. Sure, Oboro kept reassuring him about it, but it's kind of difficult for Izuku to believe words alone, considering his track record with teachers so far. It's alright, All Might. Izuku answers the man. He probably should make it clear that he's perfectly fine. The broken bones weren't that bad. If I'm being honest, I'm getting used to them. Also, I'm used to burn W wounds, so they didn't even hurt as much as I thought they would. Aizawa-sensei didn't even scold me over anything, which is amazing. I thought he would expel me. Oboro pouts at that. I told you he wouldn't. All Might stares at him, not saying a word. What did he say wrong? Izuku needs to lessen that awkwardness immediately. Anything would do. Anyway, there are 2 dead people in here, looking at you. All Might blinks. What? What? Izuku repeats. His mentor shakes his head before frowning at Izuku. Midoriya, my boy, what do you mean with being used to burn words? Oh no, did he really say that? He glances at Sixth, who nods at him. Burn wounds? I didn't say that. His mentor stares at him. Izuku stares back. Frowning, All Might nods. Okay, I must have misheard. There's no way he believes you, Oboro mutters. Moving on, the hero continues speaking. How is your first week of school going so far? Seriously? Oboro scoffs. Right after mentioning the battle simulation? Cut him some slack, Sixth mumbles. He's obviously a socially awkward person. Hey, Shouta is also socially awkward and yet you don't see him being this stupid. Izuku tunes the 2 ghosts out as they argue and puts all his attention towards his mentor. Right, All Might is probably already aware of the whole situation with his quirk, but he should still mention it. Aizawa-sensei said my performance at the entrance exam has caused issues for the school board, Izuku tells him cheerfully, unaware of the heart attack his statement just caused All Might. Izuku, he trails off, glancing at the hero. Sixth blinks. You know what? Never mind, this might be entertaining. 5 minutes later, Izuku is left confused as All Might abruptly exits the room, after thanking the student for spending lunch with him. It's then that it hits him. I said highlighted issues instead of caused issues, right? Neither ghost replies. Izuku groans, burying his face in his hands. Somewhere else, Aizawa Shouta sneezes. He has a feeling he's going to need to stack up the good coffee beans for the next few days. When Izuku steps back into the classroom after lunch, he's swarmed by some of his classmates, all of them showcasing some amount of concern as they stare at him. Izuku can't help but feel confused at the way they crowd around him and the building tension in the room. Blinking slowly, he stares at all of them, trying to make sense out of their sudden attention on him. Is something wrong? Ida is the first to step forward, moving a hand to adjust his glasses, before he speaks up. Midoriya, we are merely Are you alright, dude? Before Ida can finish his sentence, he gets shoved aside by Kaminari, who takes his place and leans closer to Izuku. Your injuries seemed, really bad. Yeah, you were covered in so many bruises. It takes him a moment, but then Izuku realizes what his classmates are talking about. Oh, right, he hasn't really spoken to any of them since the battle simulation. When everyone finally quiets down and gives him some time to process. Our recovery girl healed me, so I'm alright and now. He reassures them, waving his hands anxiously. The eye injuries really weren't that bad. Mina frowns at his response, tilting her head. You looked really bad though. You don't have to lie to them? Izuku's eyes wander to the side, where Third stares at him, a sad gaze on his face. You can be honest with them, Ninth. The injuries were really bad and there's nothing wrong with admitting that. Izuku's breath hitches in his throat. Third isn't wrong. He could tell them. They clearly already saw some of the damage and he's already admitted to visiting Recovery Girl, anyway. Plus, it's not like before. Izuku isn't quirkless anymore. Now, people would probably care. But what if they didn't? What if despite everything, they still take Katsuki's side? What if Izuku is too weird, too creepy? What if despite everything, Izuku is still Izuku, and people just don't like him that much? Kid, Third mutters. Izuku shakes his head slowly before smiling at his classmates. It seemed a lot worse than it was, but I'm fine now. Then Izuku smiles. I missed the rest of the battles. How did they go? Just like that, the conversation drifts away from his injuries. He doesn't notice the way Oboro stares at him with a conflicted frown. When everyone's seated and waiting for class to start, they realize that Bakugo's missing. Dreadfully, Izuku looks at the door and hopes he walks through it. Bakugo doesn't. Instead, Present Mike enters and doesn't comment in his absence. When Kirishima raises his hand to ask, Yamada just shakes his head. Bakugo is alright. Aizawa will explain his absence later. The dreadful feeling doesn't vanish for the rest of the lesson. During the next break, Yamada tells him to go to the teacher's lounge. Aizawa wants to talk with him. Once he arrives there, Aizawa leads him into his office and they sit down for a talk. It's about Katsuki. For the first time in his life, Izuku hears a teacher say that Katsuki has to deal with consequences for his behavior. The stunt he pulled at the battle simulation is unacceptable, Aizawa says. His treatment of you is wrong, Aizawa says. He'll have to face the consequences, Aizawa says. Beside him, Oboro cheers. The vestiges follow. Izuku doesn't. Midoriya? Izuku blinks out of his daze and stares into the concerned eyes of his teacher. What is going to happen to Kaken? The question feels heavy on his tongue. Katsuki was never at the receiving end of a punishment. It just didn't happen. That's the reality Izuku grew up with. But he can see the way Aizawa's gaze softens upon hearing his question. Midoriya, do you think what Bakugo did was okay? Izuku can't stop himself from looking down at the ground, too unsure to stare at his teacher. It's not that big of a deal, in the end, isn't it? Except, it's just, he didn't mean anything by it. It's just the way Katsuki reacts when Izuku is concerned. Nothing more and nothing else. Ninth. Let me ask you something else then. Midoriya, imagine if Uraraka or Kaminari were in your place during the exercise. Would Bakugo's behavior have been okay? To an extent, Izuku understands what Aizawa is trying to say, but it's just. If it had been anyone else, he wouldn't have done it in the first place. And maybe that stings more than anything else. Midoriya, Oboro whispers, sounding pained by his admission. Midoriya, kid, this doesn't make it better. Izuku knows. He knows. He just would have liked to pretend for a bit longer. To answer your question, he'll be suspended for a few days. Principal Nedzu and I will talk to Bakugo and his parents properly tomorrow. Will you expel him? That'll depend on a few things. Huh? Tashinari realized something very important the moment Izuku left for classes. He forgot to ask him about the quirk. The whole Cthulhu, he really should ask his successor if he doesn't want a better name for his quirk, mess. So, naturally, he decides to seek him out again next break. Except apparently Aizawa has called him for a meeting. Unsure on how long it'll take, Tashinari decides to ask the other teachers if they know. Yamada waves his hand nonchalantly. It'll probably take a while. Aizawa was pretty mad. Mad? An angry Aizawa is downright terrifying, that's for sure. But why would he be mad at Midoriya? Aizawa-sensei said my performance at the entrance exam has caused issues for the school board. Oh no, was he about to expel Izuku for that? Punish him? Especially, after he got so injured during the battle simulation? He couldn't just let that happen. Tashinari curses as he immediately sprints to the man's office, ignoring the other teachers calling out to him. Aizawa might be scary, but he couldn't just let Midoriya face that demon. He might be exaggerating, but sue him. The scolding he got will become part of his nightmares, on his own. He throws the door to the man's office open and immediately yells, "Aizawa, please don't expel him. Despite everything, he's a good kid." Both Midoriya and Aizawa look up at him. His successor looks stunned at his presence, eyes wide in disbelief. All Might? Aizawa, however, narrows his eyes at Tashinari. I see no reason why this matter should concern you. Then his mind registers Midoriya's words and he turns to face the kid. All Might? Ah, right, Midoriya shouldn't know about this form. Midoriya tries his best to salvage the situation, a nervous smile on his face. He, has the same vibes as All Might? Aizawa raises an eyebrow, making it clear that he knows that's bullshit. That sounds like a question, Midoriya. The smile vanishes as Midoriya buries his face in his hands. I don't get paid enough to deal with this. Kid, you don't get paid at all. Now, spill. The underground hero gestures for Tashinari to close the door and join them. As he does so, Midoriya tentatively explains how he met All Might 1 year before the start of high school and how he found out about the other form. So, you trauma-dumped a 14-year-old kid? I thought he deserved an explanation. Tashinari defends himself. It was also a sort of incentive for him to keep quiet about it all. Listen, no one would have believed him anyway. There was no reason for you to show him your wound and spill all your trauma. In hindsight, you might be right. But back then I didn't expect a random kid to find out. That's because you're too careless, seriously. We keep telling you to be more aware of your limit. You never listen. You're straying away from the topic. Midoriya eventually interrupts them, not looking at either of them. He's clearly trembling. Before Tashinari can comfort him, Aizawa immediately turns his attention to the kid, his gaze softer than before. You're right, kid, we shouldn't be arguing about this. I am sorry for the trouble. Not at all. None of what we talked about today is your fault, Midoriya. The kid looks up at that, eyes full of uncertainty as he nods his head. Aizawa then glances at Tashinari. Now, back to the expulsion topic. Tell me why I shouldn't expel Bakugo. It takes a few seconds but then it registers in his mind. Bakugo? You're not going to expel Midoriya? No? Aizawa says, staring at him incredulously as if what he said was beyond ridiculous. Why the hell would I expel Midoriya? Do you hear yourself? Izuku can hear the vestiges laughing. Like, almost all of them. The only one who doesn't seem to be laughing is 4, and he's pretty sure that's because the man lost the ability to laugh during his time as hermit. They all are clowns, first mutters, sounding like he's on the verge of a breakdown. This is the circus. Alright. Izuku will just leave them to do their thing. Instead, he turns to look at Oboro, who's surprisingly not laughing for once. He would have expected the ghost to be the first one to break out in laughter. Instead, Oboro looks at him, a frown on his face. He doesn't say anything though, and Izuku doesn't think it would be a good idea to start speaking with him as long as he's in the same room as his teachers. He doesn't need them to start thinking that he's going insane. No, he'll have to ask the ghost what's wrong later. Instead, he waits for All Might and Aizawa to finish their discussion. Eventually, All Might stands up with a sheepish expression on his face and nods at Izuku. It seems like I've acted on assumptions that were wrong, the hero explains. I'd like to apologize for that. Izuku just nods, unsure what the correct response would be to an apology. I really do want to burn your middle school down, Third mutters. A few of the other vestiges voice their agreement. A thank you usually suffices, Sixth provides. But they can tell you're anxious, so the nod will be enough. Don't worry about it, Ninth. If N says so. Eventually, All Might leaves the office and Izuku turns to face Aizawa. The man looks more exhausted than before. Then they continue their conversation. Once they are done, Aizawa sends him to his last classes with a pass clutched in his hands. Eventually classes come to an end and as promised, Shouta drives the kid to his old apartment, so he could pick up some of his stuff. The underground hero isn't sure what he expects when they arrive there, but it's definitely not the odd feeling the place gives him. It looks unlived in. Which is ridiculous, because both Midoriya and his mother have lived in said apartment for all those years, except, it doesn't seem like it at all. There's a thin layer of dust everywhere, most things look untouched and the apartment is cold. He's not sure how to describe it, but everything seems wrong. Like, no one has lived there for the last few months. As the kid goes to pack some stuff from his bedroom, Aizawa decides to investigate. He goes into the master bedroom to see if it's just as off. Obviously, something was wrong with Inko, so perhaps she just didn't properly take care of the living room. Except, somehow, her bedroom looks even more untouched than the living room. The window shutters are down. There's dust everywhere as well. The sheets are neatly down, too neat, in fact. He steps out of the bedroom, even more unnerved than before. She has been found sitting on a bench in the park, not moving at all for hours. Shouta walks back to the living room and waits until Izuku comes back, 2 bags clutched in his hands. They shouldn't linger for too long. Do you have everything you need? Toiletries? Midoriya nods his head. Let's go then. As they finally drive away from the apartment, the unsettling feeling in his chest vanishes. That just worries him more. It's only when Izuku sits down on the bed of his new room that the situation properly dawns on him. It's hard not to notice the shift. After all, the room is vastly different from his old one. Something heavy settles in his chest. His old room. The one at the apartment where he used to live with his mother, and now he doesn't. Aside from the standard bedroom furniture, it's still empty. This was a guest room before, Oboro tells him, settling down beside him. He's grinning again, but it seems more subdued than usually. Now, it's yours. Izuku clutches tighter at the straps of his backpack. He still hasn't set it down. It feels wrong to do so. Something just doesn't seem right. Izuku? Nana calls out to him, reaching out to put a hand onto his cheek. For a moment, her hand makes contact before it fades back into being intangible. Are you alright? Oboro frowns upon taking a closer look at him. I don't know it. Something just feels so wrong, but the room is warm. Actually, Aizawa's whole apartment is so warm. And Izuku just isn't used to the warmth. As Oboro watches Midoriya freak out about the warmth of Shuta's apartment, he can't help but start frowning again. It almost feels like his heart dropping down to his stomach, except, well, he is already dead and therefore, doesn't have a heart that can drop down to his stomach. But the sentiment is still there, and that's all what matters. Oboro feels unsettled. Another one of Midoriya's ghostly entourage immediately appears at the sound of the boy's distress to try and soothe him. A woman with long, dark hair in a half-updo. Her outfit definitely resembles the getup of a hero, and once again it makes him wonder just who all those ghosts following Midoriya are, and why they are following him. Oboro has a feeling the answer's a lot more complicated than what they keep telling him. She speaks words of comfort and reassurance to the poor kid, who doesn't seem to be doing well. In fact, Oboro's concern grows when he realizes that Midoriya seems oddly out of it. Unfocused eyes, heavy breathing, slightly trembling sheet, the kid's going through a panic attack, isn't he? The woman takes a glance at the door, most likely sharing his wish of Shouta just coming in to check on the kid and calm him down from the panic attack. Frowning, Oboro steps out of the room by phrasing through the door and searches for his friend in the apartment. He finds Shouta in the living room, sitting on the couch and reading papers. He takes a closer look at the papers and sees that they are files about Midoriya. Medical files, past school records, and the like. Well, that would explain why Shouta is frowning. Oboro doubts there's much positive in those files. That's the sad reality of Quirk discrimination. Shouta, he mutters, go check on Izuku. Nothing happens, of course. He can already feel the hints of frustration building up. It's one thing being unable to interact with most of the living world, it's another when someone is clearly in trouble and needs help. Oboro is a hero at heart, how could he ever ignore someone in need of help? But now he can't do anything. In fact, he couldn't do anything the whole day. From that stupid battle simulation where Midoriya got hurt. By that a-hole of a bully to all the time afterwards where the kid insisted he was fine when that clearly wasn't the case. And then during that meeting with that stupid clown of a #1 hero. In the first place, why did Shouta think it was a good idea to talk about the Bakugo kid's possible expulsion with Midoriya, his victim? To reassure him that his bully is going to face consequences? That could and should have been done differently. It's obvious to anyone with working eyes that Midoriya gets very anxious about meetings. Well, apparently everyone but Shouta. No, I'm sure he was aware of it. Oboro shrieks as he turns around and comes face to face with another one of Midoriya's ghosts. First, if he remembers correctly. The irony of him, a ghost, getting spooked by the other's sudden appearance is not lost on Oboro. Did I say that all? Oboro trails off. Well, yes, obviously if the other's direct response was any indication. The ghost grins at him for a moment before it mellows into a knowing smile. It's an odd smile, Oboro can't help but feel as if the ghost is looking through him. Aizawa was probably very aware of Ninth's attitude about meetings. It's just, there's no way in life to escape meetings, that is. Oh, except maybe death. Well, isn't that just eerie? I'm sure he was hoping to have the meeting in a controlled manner, but well, Tashinari kind of ruined that by his sudden presence. Oboro can't argue with that. Tashinari? All Might. Of course Midoriya's weird ghosts know the real name of the number one hero and casually address him by it. Of course. Then first frowns. And anyone can see that Bakugo and Ninth have history. He's not wrong there either. Kaken is proof enough for that. I'm sure he wanted to be transparent with Ninth. To let him know what was going to happen to Bakugo, but also to let Midoriya's reaction be the deciding factor. Oboro knows Shouta. He has seen the man grow up before his eyes. He obviously wanted to use the meeting to see what Midoriya would have to say, because in such situations it's often surprisingly crucial to let the victim talk. To let them explain what they want. The issue here is that Ninth is deep down in denial about the bullying. Yeah. Oboro groans. That meeting was frustrating. It was so obvious that Midoriya wouldn't take Bakugo's expulsion well. He has no doubt that Shouta knows as much as well. Sighing, he focuses his attention back on his friend who by now has stood up and left to make some tea in the kitchen. That's good, he tells the other ghost. He'll definitely go offer Midoriya some tea. First sighs in relief. Thank God. Like that, both wait until the underground hero finally walks into the direction of Midoriya's room. Oboro still feels beyond frustrated. Has felt so the whole day, in fact. How could he not when almost everything and everyone in this world decided to make Midoriya's life even more difficult than it already is? He desperately wishes he could do something to help the kid. Anything. Once N hears the quiet knocking followed by a call of Izuku's last name, a feeling of reassurance surges through him. Good, Aizawa had the decency to try and respect the kid's privacy. That's not always a given, and especially not for Izuku, who spent most of his life being disrespected by various adults. Just thinking about those pathetic excuses of people fills him with distaste. Calm down, 6/3 mutters beside him, your emotions might bleed through. Right. He takes a deep breath and tries to calm down. Izuku's already in the midst of a panic attack, they can't afford to be careless with their emotions and make it worse for their youngest. Izuku is starting to seem somewhat out of it, considering he doesn't even react to the knocking. And can't help but frown at that. It's not the first time the Vestiges witness Izuku having a panic attack. They aren't frequent by any means. Still, the Vestiges are familiar with the way Izuku will curl into himself and somewhat block out the world. They couldn't do much during those times except try to comfort him from the inside of his mind by projecting soothing emotions at him. Which wasn't as efficient as they would have liked, but they didn't have other options. No one. There was no one around to take care of him, to look after him, to calm him down from a panic att. Midoriya? N snaps out of his thoughts upon hearing Aizawa's voice. But there is someone now. After seconds without a response from Izuku pass, Aizawa speaks up again. I'll come in. The door opens and N calms down once more. The door does open and the hero steps in. He takes a glance at Izuku and that's enough for him to understand what's going on. Truly, they lucked out with Aizawa. No matter how stressed out and anxious Izuku was about living with him, the Vestiges all agreed that it was for the best. He couldn't go on like he had before. In that apartment with a mother that barely reacted to his presence. All those months, they tried to make him understand that something was clearly wrong with the situation and that he should confide in Tashinari. However, nothing they said made him reconsider. That kid could be really stubborn if he wanted to be. Eventually, as it became clear that nothing short of a miracle would make Izuku acknowledge the unfortunate situation he was in, the Vestiges stopped pestering him about it and instead decided to try their best to look after him. If his mother wasn't going to do it, then they would have to step up. Because no matter if Izuku was the ninth holder of One for All, he was a child before that. Although he only got the quirk once he was 15, that was still incredibly young. Younger than any of them, in fact. Everyone, besides Tashinari, had gotten the quirk when they were already adults. Back then, the times were different as was society. None of them could bear to hand over that kind of fate to a kid. Not until Nana met Tashinari and decided to take a risk. And now they had Izuku as the ninth holder. They weren't quite happy with handing that kind of responsibility to a child, but none of them would disagree with the fact that Izuku was more than deserving of wielding One for All, of shaping and honing it into something greater than before, something befitting him. Even second and third, who had their doubts about him, caved in and accepted the kid. Because no one of them could deny that Izuku was incredible. That he would complete this cycle in the most astonishing way. But that all could come later. Had to come later, because none of them wanted to rob him of his childhood. So, they tried to take care of him in place of his mother. Admittedly, Izuku was self-sufficient. In a way, that he shouldn't have to be. He cooked meals for himself and his mother, not that they ever saw her properly eat, which was concerning on its own. He washed all the laundry and cleaned up the apartment. He fixed something when it wasn't working. Second, fourth, and fifth had a lot of advice on that front. He did everything on his own. It pained them to see him have to raise himself, so they tried to fill the gap of a parental role, but, well, they were dead. No matter how much they showered him in affection and acted like overprotective parents, they couldn't properly take care of him. So, for a while they feared that Izuku would end up having to raise himself until he reached adulthood. And then his mother didn't come home. Of course, they were worried and anxious about her disappearance as well. It hurt them to see Izuku so frustrated and scared. But they were relieved. Because her disappearance would be noticed. Because there was no way you wouldn't find out. Finally, there was a shimmer of hope. And then, Izuku's homeroom teacher found out. And still remembers how relieved they all were when Aizawa told Izuku he'd look after him until his mother got sorted out. There was finally a living adult who would notice. Who would look at Izuku and see that the kid desperately needed help? Who would be there to catch Izuku once the people finally figure out what's going on within? Don't think about that. Sixth, second cuts off his thoughts. If this bleeds through to ninth, it's going to set him back. Sorry, N mutters in reply, watching as First and that ghost friend of Izuku's follow the underground hero into the room. I'm just relieved. Yeah, hopefully Aizawa won't F up. Helping the kid calm down from a panic attack wasn't something Shouta thought he would be doing that evening, but considering how hard the kid tried to seem fine with everything that happened the whole day, he probably should have expected something to give in. His heart aches when he sees Midoriya curled up into himself, seemingly smaller than he is. Not to mention how quiet the kid is. Too quiet for a mere 15-year-old kid. The kid remains unresponsive for a bit, slowly coaxed out of the state by Shouda's reassuring words. However, this is more than enough proof for Shouta that there is more to the situation than what they've discovered so far. In fact, the more he observes how skittish and unsettled Midoriya seems, the more Shouta starts to believe that the kid's probably never going to go back into Midoriya Inko's custody, even when she fully recovers. If she fully recovers. Frankly, both Shouta and Naomasa, the detective on the case, doubt it. Though, they both agree that they should keep these thoughts from Midoriya in the meanwhile. The kid wouldn't take it well. It's very obvious to Shouta that Midoriya will probably stay with him longer than what Nezu had suggested to him. Contacting the kid's biological father turned up to be fruitless. Apparently, the man died in a car accident after moving to America years ago. It's very odd though, that Midoriya doesn't seem to be aware of that fact. Neither was Inko apparently, if the Bakugos and her neighbors were to be believed. Since neither of Midoriya's parents filed for a divorce, they should have been informed of Hisashi's death. It's something to look deeper into. Neither did Midoriya have any living extended family. If Midoriya Inko died, the kid would be truly on his own with nowhere else to go. He'd be put into foster services to be one of the many other kids that would end up being swallowed by the system, except, Nezu doesn't want this. Shouta cannot understand why exactly, but he can see that his boss has an underlying motive for wanting to keep Midoriya near. Whatever the reason may be, it's clear that Midoriya ending up in the system is an outcome the principal won't allow. There's obviously something bigger going on here, and Shouta intends to find out eventually. After managing to help the kid calm down, Shouta sits with the kid for a while, just letting him slowly adjust to his new surroundings. Just as expected, the kid is withdrawn, still keeping his distance from Shouta. It's to be expected. From what the underground hero can tell, Midoriya doesn't seem to trust him in the slightest. That alone wouldn't be strange. It's only the beginning of the school year and the kids have barely interacted with most of the teachers. So, of course they'd still be slightly wary, trying to make out how everyone ticks. That said, most other students still tend to have a base trust in the teachers. Most of them being pro-heroes with good reputations probably adds to that. Midoriya, however, seems to lack even that little amount of trust. Everyone that had him in their class noted that he seemed to be uncomfortable and anxious during the lesson. He'll have to look into this. There is simply no way he can ignore it when it's so obvious that there is something incredibly off about Midoriya and, well, considering the kid's former quirkless status. Shouta sighs. Still, it would be nice if the kid could relax just a bit around him. It wouldn't be good if he was constantly stressed and anxious at home as well. Just as he assumes that the silence will last for the rest of the day, the kid addresses him. Aizawa-sensei? A momentary feeling of surprise hits him, before he pushes it down again, returning to his carefully crafted neutral expression. He looks at the kid, gesturing for him to speak with a nod of his head. Would it be possible to visit my mother? Everything Katsuki knows falls apart suddenly. Out of nowhere. No, that's not fully correct. A part of him, buried deep down beneath everything else, expected that outcome. So, when he gets called to the principal's office and sees his parents waiting for him there, Katsuki isn't as surprised as he probably should be. A storm of emotions brews inside him, but he settles down on the chair calmer than ever. When Aizawa steps into the room, a gaze of steel on his face, and the meeting starts, everything he knows begins to shift. Principal Nedzu begins to explain the reason for the meeting. At the end of it, there's only silence for a moment. When he dares to look at his parents' faces, both seem horrified. The storm inside him rages on. Then Aizawa speaks up. And everything comes crashing down. The next day, Katsuki doesn't come to class. With bated breath and a feeling of something wrong, Izuku watches. Watches as his classmates start to wonder where the blonde is, watches as Kirishima looks more concerned with each passing second. Watches on as their homeroom teacher walks in and the bell rings. Hands raise up, but Aizawa only shakes his head. Bakugo has been transferred to the general education department as of today. The class breaks out in loud exclamations and queries. Izuku shrinks into himself. Izuku already knew that. He already did, but it still unsettles him in a way he cannot explain. Because you're not used to seeing Bakugo facing consequences for his actions, Second mutters. Don't deny it, Ninth. That kid needed this kind of reality check years ago. It's not your fault, Izuku. First's voice echoes in his mind. Remember? You're not responsible for his actions. Plus you heard Aizawa back then. Izuku turns his gaze to Six, who materializes before him. This might be a setback, but one that he could potentially overcome. It all depends on Bakugo. Right. Setbacks can be overcome. It starts with wailing. Izuku should be focusing on Pro Hero 13's words, but that proves to be getting increasingly more difficult with each passing second. The reason for his lack of focus is quite simple. It's difficult to hear someone speak when their voice gets drowned out by a crowd of ghosts all appearing out of nowhere that decide to scream at the top of their lungs. Except they don't have lungs anymore, so they don't run out of breath. They don't stop screaming even once, and out of the corner of his eyes he can see Oboro look ahead at them with wide eyes. Upon realizing just how many of them are suddenly in the plaza of the USJ, Izuku's heart drops down to his stomach. The deceased rarely tend to gather in crowds, and when they do, that's a sign of something sinister approaching. Just a few seconds later, Izuku is proven right as a portal opens in the middle of the place and a large crowd of living people step out of it. It doesn't take Izuku long to figure out what the connection between the ghosts and the crowd is. Oh, he thinks, those are villains. The pro heroes spring into action immediately and his classmates start to panic. Izuku, however, can't seem to act. Instead, he stands there and watches as the crowd increases and the wailing gets louder. He smells smoke and all the noise is suddenly replaced by loud coughing. The scenery turns blurry and all the colors mash together as he's trapped in old memories. Tiny hands reach out for him, grabbing onto the sleeves of his gray raincoat, accompanied by crying and screams echoing in the background. He feels his mouth moving, countless reassurances spilling out as he reaches back. Just how much longer will this last? Ninth. A voice calls out, muffled by the explosion of noises around him. Ninth. It repeats and repeats until Ninth. Izuku blinks and then he breaks back into the present, just in time to see black-purple mist spread around the place. A quirk? Ninth, watch out. His surroundings shift once more. But oddly enough, Izuku's not really disturbed at the moment. Maybe it's because of the previous memory that almost swallowed his consciousness, but at the very moment he can't help but think how familiar this quirk feels. He just can't figure out why. That feeling itself is more disorienting than suddenly being dropped in a complete other direction. Midoriya? Ojiro calls out to him and he finally snaps out of the daze he was in. It's quieter than before, but not by much. Still, it's easier now to breathe. To think. Sorry, I'm fine, he mutters. But? He looks around. They're surrounded by villains. Midoriya frowns at the ghosts trailing the villains. Just what in the world was happening? We don't have time to waste. Let's find out what they are after, someone else speaks up. Todoroki steps up beside him and Izuku can't help but frown upon seeing the other's expression. What a cold gaze. You've got to be kidding me, Fifth groans. A whole villain attack? 3 days into his first year. As they say, Oboro mumbles, plus ultra. Fifth frowns. Are you okay? You sound off. Oboro just smiles slightly. Somehow he seems paler than usual, which is weird, considering he's a ghost. I'm fine, just. I feel a bit weird? Tingly? Dunno how to describe it. Nothing's wrong though. Fifth raises an eyebrow, disbelief visibly reflected on his face. He's definitely not buying any of that. However, before he can further comment on the other's state, both tense up and immediately turn around. To the sight of ice. Wah! The culprit is no one other than Izuku's classmate. Ah, the Todoroki, Oboro mumbles, the surprise dying down quickly. Consider what that child's father was capable of. There's one that's weird though. That kid's not scared at all, Fifth points out. He's oddly calm. Isn't Izuku either though? The only one who seems panicked is the one with the tail, Ojiro? Izuku's definitely panicking. Just internally. Maybe he's the same? His father is well known. Is that kid threatening the villain? What the actual F-. They don't have long to dwell on it once they hear the villain reveal what exactly the goal of this attack is. Sheet, mutters Izuku. Sheet, repeats Fifth, groaning. I don't like where this is going at all. They all are thinking it, when they see the Nomu for the first time, but First is the only one who has the guts to voice it. You know, this thing really has my brother written all over it. Seventh smiles. Pack it up, boys. First just jinxed us. At the end of the day, everyone has survived. Izuku is obviously very grateful about that, however, that day has left him with multiple new issues. For example, whatever the hell is going on with Todoroki. There's definitely something wrong there. Or that whole Nomu thing. He's heard his companion Ghost's little breakdown and he's going to make them talk for sure. The biggest issue is, however, the one that's currently immediate. Aizawa, who currently seems to be his temporary guardian, is unconscious. His mother is still out of the question either. And Izuku has undergone another medical operation which would have needed a guardian's permission. Aizawa wouldn't sue UA, would he? All Might questions, sounding meeker than usual. Recovery Girl really does scare him, huh? With the way she currently looks like she might just finish what the Nomu couldn't, Izuku can't blame the man. UA currently has custody of me, right? At least that's the only logical conclusion he could come to. Recovery Girl nods. At least one of you isn't stupid. Wow, All Might must have really set her off. Tuning out whatever, very one-sided, argument has started between them, Izuku glances around the room until he spots Oboro. He can't help but frown at the other's expression. Since the attack he's been oddly quiet and Five has been telling him that something seems wrong with Oboro. There's no way Izuku can ask him anything at the moment, which bothers him immensely. He'd prefer if he could just check up on the other, but that would lead to Recovery Girl assuming that he's losing it for good. He can't dwell on it much longer though, because in that moment Present Mike dashes into the room. Shouta is up. Izuku can't help but feel relieved.
Okay, sadly the chapter is over, and if you enjoyed the video just leave a like, and subscribe with post notification, so when the next chapter is ready, you will be notified. Okay, see you in the next video. Bye.